It's July and one of the world's greatest sporting spectacles is about to happen. Hello again everybody, I'm Phil Liggett along with Paul Sherwin. The Tour de France this year starting from the city of Rouen, and this is the River Seine, the same river which passes through Paris, where the 3-week race will end its near 4,000 kilometres. Well, Rouen is famous for many things, but to cyclists in particular, it is famous for one man. Now here's Gary Imlach to tell us more.
You know, according to my copy of the Rough Guide, Rouen spends more of its money on public monuments than any other town in France. And it's easy to believe because this place is populated by a plaster cast of thousands, from Flaubert, who lived in Rouen, to Joan of Arc, who died here. Until now, though, local boy Jacques Anquetil, the first man ever to win 5 Tours, has had nothing, not even a single by orchestral manoeuvres in the dark named after him. This week, though, both the town and the Tour have been making amends. Joint billing with Napoleon in front of the town hall wasn't bad for a start, and there's been plenty more. On Wednesday, Rouen marked the 10th anniversary of Jacques Anquetil's death and the 40th of his first Tour win in 1957 by renaming one of its major boulevards after him. Yesterday, in the tiny village of Quincampoix, where Anquetil's buried, the Tour did its bit with a wreath-laying ceremony at his grave. On hand to pay their respects, along with his old teammates, were the only 3 men ever to match Anquetil's total of Tour wins: Eddy Merckx, Bernard Hinault and Miguel Indurain. To understand what all the fuss is about, you have to go back to the early 60s, when Anquetil was destroying world-class fields without seeming to suffer so much as a bad hair day. His chosen weapon was the time trial, and his chief victim was usually his great rival, Raymond Poulidor.
Autant nous étions adversaires et quelquefois nous nous sommes haïs lorsque nous étions en compétition, autant notre amitié est devenue forte lorsque nous avons mis un cours à notre carrière.
In cycling, though, even champions are supposed to suffer, and while the down-to-earth Poulidor was eternally popular for being eternally second, Anquetil won 4 Tours in a row between 1961 and 64, to the polite applause the public reserves for those they've decided are too good-looking and talented to be really lovable. It wasn't until he died of cancer in 1987 at the age of 53 that many people in French cycling realised what a champion they'd lost, and perhaps not until this week that they got around to formally acknowledging it.
What a great rider he was, Jacques Anquetil. Now to the 84th Tour de France, starting with the 7.3 kilometres prologue. Chris Boorman is expected to do the winning time. He knows exactly what he's got to do now, because an early starter off number 44, Jan Ullrich, has finished with a time of 8 minutes and 22 seconds, so the gauntlet is down. 5th from the back to start, Chris Boorman.
Well, Boorman is a specialist at this kind of solitary effort. He's already won the prologue of the Tour de France in 1994. But Phil, I think a very clever move by Telecom. Bjarne Riis had to start last man, but they put another man at the early part just in case of weather changes.
Well, the indications are that Boorman 1 second better at halfway on Ullrich, so it's not a great time by Chris Boorman, but it's going to be possibly the best. He'll have to sprint to convince everybody, though, because Ullrich's time has withstood just about everybody. As Boorman puts his head down, he's done it. 8:20, 1.82 seconds quicker. Chris Boorman is top of the leaderboard, and nobody will beat that. So Boorman gets the prologue time trial for the 2nd time in his career. He beats Ullrich, Evgeny Berzin by 5, Tony Rominger, good ride 4th, Alex Zülle, complete with a broken collarbone, is 5th. And Bjarne Riis there, Paul, 13th for him. He won't be too unhappy with that, but Boorman gets the first maillot jaune of the Tour de France. And Chris will wear that today on the opening stage in Rouen to Forges-les-Eaux, 192 kilometres, not very far away, in fact, to finish, though, from the start city. And immediately the race has got underway on the narrow roads of Normandy, massive pile-up. And it looks to me, Paul, as though something like 60 riders involved in this one.
Well, certainly has caused a traffic jam, but 1 or 2 riders staying down on the ground there. I think 1 or 2 may well be seriously injured, but you can see the chaos. Riders trying to get into the gutter at the side to get round and carry on with the racing.
Well, this is the latest of a series of crashes today. We'll try and pick up that rider who is lying down in the road at the moment. A lot of riders here showing no concern about remounting and getting on with the Tour de France, because there's a lot of riders got away up front, but it's also around the epicentre down there. One rider is on the floor, and we'll try and get down in there and see who it is. Alex Zülle is one rider who's been delayed as well, and he's not going to be too pleased with that, Paul, especially with his damaged collarbone.
Well, that operation just before the Tour de France, he was hoping would be able to ride down to the mountains without too many problems. You can see Alex Zülle there, but the rider on the floor is one of the riders from Big Mat Aubert.
Well, I think it's Gilles Talmont who's gone down, and we've left him behind on the road now as the riders have regrouped after a long chase over the countryside. A number of riders have been delayed by that crash, so it won't be a massive bunch sprint here today. But they're slowly getting themselves back together as we run down towards the finish now at Forges-les-Eaux. And I think everybody's going to look out for Mario Cipollini to see if he can take on Eric Zabel, the green jersey last year in the Tour de France, and he's sprinting so well this year. And it looks as though Zabel is going to try and interfere with the result of the first stage. A lot of fanning out by the main field here, but a very small group indeed of about 50 riders competing for the sprint. Chris Boardman has made the split, but the time bonuses could well lose him the race lead. As the finish approaches, Mario Cipollini leads all the way to the line. Now the time bonus he has got by crossing the line should be just enough to give him the maillot jaune. And this group coming in now contains Bjarne Riis losing 58 seconds on day one of the Tour de France, while Mario Cipollini, complete with his American shorts, there he get fined for those, is enjoying the victory. And look at the speed of this man. 5 stage wins in the Tour of Italy. He's opened his account again on the first stage now of the Tour de France. He makes it look so easy, finishing ahead of Tom Steels here, the Belgian champion, riding his first Tour de France. And in the white jersey there is Frédéric Moncassin. But there you can see Steels just snicking second place. Here he comes over the hill, the big man stamping his authority again on the sprint stage of the Tour de France. So a super win for Super Mario. He's now the leader of the Tour de France, but those shorts, well, they're illegal. He will be fined, and Paul Schoen put the question to him.
Demain, vous allez mettre un cuissard jaune et un vélo jaune?
Oui, demain nous avons déjà préparé un vélo et un cuissard jaune.
Mario, cette année, le maillot rose dans le Tour d'Italie, le maillot jaune dans le Tour de France, laquelle est la plus belle?
Sont tous les deux plus belles. On va vivre en deux modes différents. Le Tour d'Italie, c'est le cœur, ici, c'est la chose plus grande du monde.
Well, Mario should know, and we look forward now to him riding the yellow bike in the Tour de France. So the ever-present dangers of taking part in the Tour de France yesterday highlighted on the very first stage. More than 2/3 of the field affected by that massive pile-up. For some of the big favourites, well, they really did lose out. But for others, of course, they profited. Here's Gary Imlach to report.
The chief beneficiary at the expense of his team leader Bjarne Riis was Telecom's Jan Ullrich. Ullrich served notice of his potential when he comprehensively beat Riis in last year's final time trial on his way to second place overall. This year, it seemed the only thing holding him back would be team orders to work for the boss. But after beating Riis again in the prologue, Ullrich now finds himself over a minute up on his leader, who was caught behind the crash. Team orders may have to be rethought. With Ullrich on the right side of the spill was Spain's leading Miguel Indurain impersonator, Abraham Olano. He's enhanced the likeness this year by taking Big Mig's spot at Benesto, but he knows that only a win will make it truly convincing. The only real French contender is Richard Virenque. After 3 wins, the novelty's worn off the King of the Mountains competition for him, and he'll be looking to apply his climbing ability to the general classification. Virenque finished ahead of the crash yesterday, unlike Yevgeny Berzin, who lost 58 seconds as a result. That and his ability to self-destruct, as he did to lose the yellow jersey last year, make him an outside bet. Alex Zuller isn't so much a bet for the Tour as an insurance risk. He arrived with half a dozen screws in a broken collarbone after a crash 3 weeks ago. He went down again yesterday, falling 1:35 behind Ullrich and the rest of the challengers to Bjarne Riis. Which brings us to the defending champion himself. Last year, Riis finally completed the transformation from jobbing rider to Tour winner, but at the age of 33, he's not keen on making the return journey. He didn't fare as badly as Zuller yesterday, but still lost 58 seconds to the leading group. He's now 1 minute 11 seconds down on Ullrich. That's by no means a disaster for Riis this early in the race, but it could be the start of an interesting dilemma for his team.
And this is where the leading contenders stand at the moment. Jan Ullrich currently third, 12 seconds off the pace, and Olano up there in fifth. He's 20 seconds down. So on to stage 2 now. The race are passing away from Normandy into Brittany. 262 kilometres. It's a long, long way today, Paul.
Well, Mario Cipollini resplendent in his yellow jersey, yellow shorts and the yellow bicycle, and he's got one little dream in the back of his mind, Phil. He'd like to win in that attire.
You forgot the yellow gloves, glasses and socks. Anyway, the TVM team are trying to set this up today for Jerome Blylavens, who usually pulls one stage win in a Tour de France. In the final kilometre now, it's been a day of attack and counter-attack, but the field has come back together. And now it looks as though TVM are trying to give Blylavens the victory. Mario Cipollini right on the far right as we look at the picture here, and he looks to be in a bad position as he makes her way up to a finish in Vire. And they're already out of the Tour today. Another rider is retired, by the way. Arsenio Gonzalez of Kelme went out in the first hour with his crash injuries from yesterday. Anyway, the sprinters now trying to wind it up towards the line here. It looks to me, Paul, as though hopelessly boxed in now is Cipollini. As the field swings across towards the left of our picture, it looks as though Cipollini has got himself in an awful mess today. The man in yellow perhaps suffering a little bit from pre-race nerves. Robbie McEwen dodging about on the far left. First time Aussie in the Tour. Cipollini's got through. I can't believe he came through that gap, but he saw it and he's free as a bird. Mario Cipollini is taking the stage right on the line, and the rider who's just on his wheel was Zabel. And the other man will have to be content with third place, Jerome Blylavens. Well, Cipollini won his first stage in the Maglia Rosa in the Tour of Italy this year. Now he's done likewise in the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. This has opened up an intriguing prospect now on stage 3 as we go from Vire to Plumelec, because now Mario Cipollini could become the first man for 49 years to win 3 stages in a row. Well, the other Italian, Gino Bartoli, was the legend who did it back in 1948. And now, can Mario Cipollini do the same? The omens are there. Mario Cipollini is, of course, Italian, and like Bartoli, he's now wearing a yellow jersey. So he can dream of 3 stages in a row as he starts out now on the stage here of 224 kilometres from Vire to Plumelec. Paul, can he do it?
It's going to be very difficult because very few people have done it over recent years, but he is happily installed at the top of the leaderboard. Cipollini with 36 seconds over Chris Boardman, and Ulrich 38 seconds behind. One thing's for certain, Phil's already at the finish line in Plumelec.
Well, I wonder if Mario Cipollini will be standing here on the winner's podium at the end of today's stage here in Plumelec. It's not really his sort of finish, you know, because just off to my right here is a small climb. But the way Mario's been riding these past 2 days, you won't find too many people who'll bet against him. But before we go to the day's action, let's join Paul Sherwin, who'll tell us more about the great skills of this Italian bike rider.
If you want to be a sprinter, take some lessons from Mario Cipollini. 400 metres to go, and he seems to be completely locked in the pack behind 20 other riders. But a good sprinter never gives up. He's always waiting and hoping that the gaps will appear, like a gate that he'll try to keep open with his handlebars and his shoulders. It takes courage, daring and the acceleration to go through. Inside 200 metres to go, the sprint begins. All the other riders are too scared to hit the front early, and that's why Cipollini's the best. He has the power and the speed to come around the outside when everybody else in the middle falters. It's risky. Even when Zabel in the pink opens up his sprint, Cipollini has to choose whether to go left or right. He flicks his bike around the German's wheel, opens the gate up to the finish and powers away on a massive gear of 53 by 11. Unheard of by sprinters 20 years ago, but Super Mario is a sprinter of today.
Indeed he is, and here he is now at Saint-Hilaire-de-Arcueil at 37 kilometres. The small time bonus is very important for not just the green jersey but the yellow as well. Zabel is taking on a Cipollini, and Zabel beats him. In fact, Moncassin getting second and Cipollini only third, but he gets a 2-second time bonus. The race goes on, heading towards Plumelec. Very nasty finish to the race today in Plumelec, and the riders, I think, will be very wary towards the end. Now, Super Mario looks in good form with Tony Rominger.
Well, they both live in Monaco and probably train together occasionally, but I would think Mario on the flat and Tony on the hills.
Well, they're having a little laugh here, but the pace is quite high, and Rominger moves slickly into line. This is the second sprint of the day, and this is at Bezoug-le-Perouse. 93 kilometres have been covered now. And a little breakaway trying to get away, and that's Gianluca Bortolami going over ahead of Francois Simon and Danny Nelson. This break has the lead of 2 minutes and 10 seconds over the field. Let's go back now to Gary Imlach, because after all, who is Mario Cipollini when it comes to the Tour de France? He's never finished one yet.
Now then, Mario Cipollini has no chance of ever equaling Eno's record of 5 Tour de France wins. In fact, this is his 5th Tour and he's yet to finish one. But then hundreds of riders have been round during that time. How many of them have you ever heard of? In a sport populated largely by stoics, the occasional wide boy is bound to stand out. And with his cormorant wingspan, big screen grin and general Jack-the-Lad outlook, Mario Cipollini ranks fairly wide. Not many riders wear loafers on the treatment table, and no one to my knowledge has ever taken the podium before in a white suit and cowboy boots. But then Cipo's riding ability is almost eclipsed by his marketability. This advert's for cycling shoes, in case you're wondering, and at home in Italy, Mario even gets TV spots endorsing his team sponsors' coffee machines.
Buona idea un caffè. In casa ci vuole secco.
Not exactly evidence of a career in acting once his day job's over, but for the moment, Cipo's happy making the most of the spotlight he's got. And whether it's as the Lion King, Super Mario, or his current incarnation as colour-coordinated man about the peloton, it's all part of the marketing strategy.
Nous avons préparé déjà tout avant. Je pense que c'est un mise jolie pour les maillots. C'est respect pour les maillots avec ça. Et demain, je pense que c'est le même. Pourquoi moi, j'aime beaucoup comme ça.
Of course, Mario's costume changes are strictly against the rules, which of course is the whole idea. His 2 days in head-to-foot yellow, along with the stars and stripes shorts he modelled on the first stage, mean that he's now leading the race on time, points, publicity and fines.
Nous avons gagné 2 étapes. Déjà, nous avons déjà pris beaucoup de primes. Alors, il a la possibilité de payer l'amende.
Nobody questions Cipollini's supremacy in the sprint, but his ability to go the distance has always been suspect. His previous tours have been one-week French holidays. Turn up, win a couple of flat stages, then get a note from the team doctor once the going gets diagonal. But this year, Cipo's in possibly the best form of his life. He won a record 5 stages in the Giro, including the final one, and fancies doing the same here.
C'est un rêve de la vie de le sprinter gagner à Paris avec le maillot vert sans le maillot vert. Je pense que cette année, j'avais une bonne possibilité pourquoi mon condition c'est très bon dans ce moment. J'avais fait un bon tour d'Italie et c'est un bon travail pour aller faire un Tour de France. Pour moi, c'est parti très très bien dans ce moment. J'espère de continuer à Paris.
Mario's insistence on being fully accessorised has turned the Psycho team bus into an extension of his private wardrobe. This is the Stars and Stripes bike he was riding to start the race. Here's the yellow one he's on at the moment. And this is the green frame that will form the basis of his colour palette once he slips out of the race leading into the points jersey. Now, I've asked the mechanics and they say they haven't been asked for anything in a polka dot yet. But then again, by the time the race hits the Pyrenees, Mario's more likely to be wearing a pained expression. Back to the race.
Well, Gary, I think he's got one now as we approach the finish here. There's a nasty little climb up to Plumelec. It's Laurent Brochon, the King of the Mountains, leading. Jalabert is there. Rees is here. But also not here now is Tony Rominger, and I believe he's retired from the race following the crash a few kilometres ago. Frank van den Broek launching the attack now. He's got Zabel on his wheel right at the back. I'm afraid he's Cipollini. He's not in the hunt for 3 in a row. Zabel has come over the top of a struggling Van den Broek. He gets the stage, and Bjarne Riis has got 3rd. He'd be delighted with that. Riis getting himself back into this race. This is how it happened. Eric Zabel, realising that Van den Broek had misjudged the length of this hill, come easily over the top of him and gets the stage win, his first of this year's tour. Paul Sherwin is with him, and I bet he's happy.
Eric, one day after your birthday, it's almost as good as winning yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. Yesterday I was second, and for 2 years I win on my birthday. And okay, with 27 years old, I feel I'm a little bit better.
Well, he's almost on his pension, isn't he? But this is a sad sight, Paul. This is Tony Rominger, who crashed out just before the finish at Plumelec, confirmed a broken collarbone, and at 36 years of age, I think he's ridden his last Tour de France. We're all very sad about that. The Tour, of course, goes on, and Mario Cipollini leading Zabel now by 14 seconds. Chris Boardman still up there in 3rd place and waiting for his first test in the mountains. They're still a little way away. Now we're on to stage number 4. This is 223 kilometres, and it is a nice little route, this, as we start to plunge south now to Le Puy du Fou.
Well, that's where the Tour de France started a couple of years ago, and the riders again on very narrow roads, and once again lots of crashes as they go over the climb here of the Pont de Saint-Lazare, the biggest difficulty of the day.
And coming off the bridge here now, the crosswinds have picked up the race, and again a news reaching us of a little bit of a problem. We believe that Fabiano Fontanelli has hit a woman spectator and is down on the ground, but the race itself now beginning to attack for the first time here. Those crosswinds have disturbed the rhythm of the peloton and the strongmen, and Ulrich again has gone to the front. He's riding so strongly at the moment.
He's trying to set the sprint up for Eric Zabel. Really amazing to see this man all of the time when he needs to. He comes to the front, working like a Trojan for his teammate. And also up there in second position is Bjarne Riis. So Telecom trying to be all dominating in the first week of the Tour.
Well, they're setting themselves a tough tour, you know, because they're trying to nurse the green jersey for Zabel and the yellow jersey for Riis, or is it Ulrich? Because that is still very much unclear. Anyway, Ulrich is proving the way to keep out of all these crashes this week is to get near the front and stay out of trouble, and so far he hasn't made any mistakes here now, as the team are trying to line up Zabel again for the sprint, and Nicola Minali is nosing in on this one too. So Minali's the rider in blue. Zabel is through on the rails there. He's in the green jersey. This is going to be a very tight sprint. Cipollini trying to come through as well now. Cipollini on the barriers. He's got the wheel of Eric Zabel. And this is a rough ride too, but Zabel is going for it now. Minali is with him. Minali and Moncassin. Moncassin to the line. A very tight finish indeed, but Minali thinks he's got it. But my goodness me, that was a close one. I couldn't split it. Let's have another look at this one. There is Frédéric Moncassin searching for the stage win. Minali, the man that won a stage with Tour de France when it was in Britain a couple of years ago. He's right alongside Frédéric Moncassin, and Cipollini couldn't get through. Paul, just have a look at this.
Well, that's quite remarkable. You can see the speed of Nicola Minali coming up there on the left in the blue. There was a little bit of a switch from Zabel in the green, which I think slowed down Mario Cipollini in the yellow. Moncassin, using a huge gear on the left-hand shoulder of Minali, tries to come up at the very last minute, but it all goes down to the lunge for the line, and both of these riders lunging at almost the same time. I think the mistake from Moncassin came that he threw his bike just a little bit too soon, and then I think it's going to have to go down to the finish, because as they go over the line, they're almost on the same millimetre, really.
Unbelievable. Well, Minali instinctively has thrown his hand up. He's claiming the victory, but this is going to go down, I think, as one of the closest finishes on the stage of the Tour de France. The eye cannot split these two riders, and we're trying every camera angle here, but they're crossing the line almost together. But the sense of Minali to throw his hand up, I think he might get it. Look at this. Well, you know, from this angle, to me it looks like Moncassin, but the judges are giving it to Nicola Minali, and they're saying the official distance is 4 millimetres. And I think they're right. I think the rider on the far side has won the stage. Well, there we are, Nicola Minali, a stage winner by the narrowest margin I can recall, just 4 millimetres, and that's official. The overall standings after stage 4, Cipollini keeps his lead, but by now only 4 seconds ahead of Zabel. Chris Boorman is still third, and Ulrich still hovering there in fourth. On to stage number 5, we're going on an easterly route now from Chantonnay down to La Châtre, and they reckon they'll be in the saddle for around 6 hours. Well, a sad day too, because an accident near the finish yesterday, and this rider, Alex Zuller, he's been on the ground almost every day this week, has decided to retire with that damaged collarbone, literally held together with nuts and bolts. Let's hope he recovers quickly, and let's hope he comes back big time for the Tour of Spain. The race continues now to roll on out of town, and this is a good stage today. It's a new town for the start and a new town for the finish as far as the Tour de France is concerned, and still in that yellow jersey is Mario Cipollini. And the man who's made the early move is Cedric Vasseur. He's making a long shot. Now, can he get enough time here to win this stage? Because if he wins with a big margin, he will take over the yellow jersey, and that will be something of a surprise.
Well, a brave man to go out on roads like these, because they're very long and very straight, and the wind is up as well, because that's going to be difficult for him over the final kilometres.
So the field is all together, but this first week of the Tour highlighted by crashes. So let's go to Gary Imlach now, who can sum up just what a tough week it's been in this first week of the Tour de France. Over to you, Gary.
Last year it was the roundabouts of Holland, this year it's the narrow roads of northern France, but whatever the scenery of the accident, the first week of the Tour always seems to be a week of crashes.
Well, there is a big pile-up.
People are just going berserk.
Looks like a Seiko rider's gone down.
Yeah, battle of survival.
Riders have gone off to the right into the ditch here.
It's crazy, isn't it? The first week of the Tour is always jittery, with a full complement of riders and not enough miles in their legs to calm them down and string them out. The consensus in the peloton seems to be that this year things are worse.
There's many factors: the roads, the speed, 200 guys, and all those things.
I think there's too many people on too smaller roads, and and everyone's really nervous.
You survive the first week without crashing. The second week, you're going to be okay.
In fact, it's a clear sign that the situation's getting out of hand when non-climbers are looking forward to the Pyrenees.
Last year was the same thing. I remember just very nerve-wracking. I mean, when you finally got to the mountains, it was a relief to get to the mountains, because then finally you're able to just be in your little group and ride, you know, for me, riding alone, but with other guys riding with a smaller group.
For some reason, the whole season so far seems to have had more than its quota of crashes. In Milan-San Remo, Laurent Jalabert brought down Britain's Max Chiandri in the final sprint, and Abraham Olano's attempt to warm up for the Tour with a win in the Dauphiné Libéré ended up down the side of a hill. The Tour of Italy in particular had enough crashes for a compilation video. The most embarrassing being Alexander Schaefer headbutting a snack bar in a less than tight bend, and the nastiest looking Luc Leblanc hitting the wall. The unluckiest rider in the race though had to be Marco Pantani. Having missed most of last year after an encounter with a car, he was brought down by a black cat, and like Leblanc, he had to abandon. Of course, the history of the Tour is littered with crashes, and quite a few of them have decided the outcome of the race. In 1951, Wim van Aert, the first Dutchman to wear the yellow jersey, became the first to lose it when he went down a ravine on the Col d'Aubisque. It was bad news for his team too, because their entire supply of spare inner tubes was tied together to pull him up, forcing them to abandon as well. In 1971, Louis Ocaña was leading the race when he missed a bend, hit a spectator and broke his collarbone, effectively handing Eddie Merckx the third of his 5 tours. More recently, of course, Rolf Sorensen crashed out in yellow during the 91 Tour, and Chris Boardman famously lost the chance to take it when he lost control in the rain at Saint-Brieuc during the 1995 Prologue. For drama, you can choose from crashes at either end of tours in the 90s. Laurent Jalabert's in 94, when a policeman officially didn't step out in front of the peloton, at least according to the police, on stage 1. And Jamaluddin Abdou-Jafarov's spectacular collision with a Coke bollard within 50 yards of the finish on the Champs-Élysées 3 years earlier. For sheer courage, though, nothing matches Bernard Hinault's refusal to give up the yellow jersey in 1985. Despite breaking his nose in a nasty fall close to the finish in Saint-Étienne, he finished the stage and went on to win the last of his 5 tours.
And all of those riders did recover from those horrific injuries. Well, this is the sprint now at Neuvy-Saint-Sepulchre. 245 kilometres covered. 7 minutes ahead is Vasseur, but this is the sprint for second place. The battle for that green and yellow jersey goes on. Zabel just about nipping that one off Cipollini. But Paul Vasseur, who broke away at around 114 kilometres, he had a lead of nearly 18 minutes. He's still over 7 minutes clear.
Well, it's a bit crazy, these two riders sprinting for bonuses of around about 2 seconds, because at the moment they should get their teams together and organise the chase behind. They're fighting out really as if this is the win at the end of the stage, because they're so close, pushing themselves a long way ahead. It just goes to Zabel on the line, and Chippo will take 3rd place.
Well, the race has gone on because the Gann rider, Cedric Vasseur, whose father, by the way, Alain Vasseur, had a breakaway similar to this back in 1970, I think it was, Paul, and he won the stage.
His father was a great rider when it came to those lone breakaways, in fact winning a stage of the Tour de France. But if Cedric Vasseur can keep the time gap that he's got at the moment, 6 minutes and 25, he will have something that his father never had, and that's a yellow jersey in the Tour de France.
Right, well, at the moment, Vasseur started the day 21st overall, 1 minute and 37 seconds behind Mario Cipollini. And I don't think Cipollini expected to lose the lead today. But right now, I don't think equally so that Vasseur expected to get the lead, but it's beginning to look possible. Yes, he is showing signs of fatigue, and you know, if he survives all the way to the line, he'll have been alone in the lead for 147 kilometres. And this is not a flat route today, it rolls all the way.
You can see now he knows that he's got the stage victory. He wants now to try and conserve as much of that time as possible, forcing himself to keep going. This is the time when he will get some energy from somewhere else, some energy just from his courage and determination just to keep those legs going around. But a brilliant move by this man, and I think he's going to be so happy when he sees that line finally, because he's been waiting for it for around about 3.5 hours.
So, a very interesting tour in this opening week, and now it looks as though he's going to get it. He knows it. He's going to spend a little time throwing kisses around here, as Cedric Vasseur is going to become the surprised leader of the Tour de France. He's still approximately 2.5 minutes to the good at the last time check. There's a chance to see what happens on television back in northern France. That's Dad Alain, who used to race on the big team, and he's commentating actually on his son crossing the line live. Cedric Vasseur becomes the new leader of the Tour de France, because here is the race for second place. The Australian Stuart O'Grady is going to make it a 1-2 for Gann, and look at the gap, 2:32, so Vasseur is confirmed as the leader. and Cabello of the Kelme team was third, but that was a superb result, and cleaning up for the rest, the two big sprinters, Cipollini and Zabel, but it won't matter now. 3 minutes and 24 seconds back.
Well, a brilliant day for Cedric Vasseur, one that will go down in the history books, but now he has a yellow jersey to contend with, and I'm sure they will make him rise to the occasion. He celebrates the crowds here. He knows that that is a great victory for himself and also for the GAN team. It's their second yellow jersey in the Tour after that of Christopher Boorman, and Cipollini, the big loser, at 2:17, Eric Zabel at 2:19, and Boorman, his own teammate, back in 4th place. Jan Ullrich, though, Phil, all of the time well up there in 5th. And on the day that Alex Zuller didn't start, only 192 riders left in the race.
Hello and welcome to the 7th day of the Tour de France. Well, yesterday we concentrated on the battle between the sprinters, and instead it was a young Frenchman, Cedric Vasseur, who broke clear, won the stage and took the race lead. What went wrong among the sprinters? How did Vasseur escape? Well, before we join the action, here's Paul Sherwin with his opinion.
Cedric Vasseur got clear of the pack yesterday for one simple reason. They let him. It was a good solution for everyone. He would take the big time bonuses along the way. As he built up a lead that exceeded 17 minutes, an interesting game of chess was being played out behind. The lone leader would take the pressure off the battle between Mario Cipollini and Eric Zabel for the yellow jersey. I think that Mario Cipollini's Psycho team had lost a little confidence in him. He was being repeatedly beaten in the sprints by Zabel, so they were happy to let the breakaway succeed and take the time bonus sprints. On the other hand, if Telecom wanted to have Zabel in yellow, then they would have to chase. Bjarne Riis, the team leader, decided he didn't want to have a short-term yellow jersey and ordered Telecom not to work. The result, nobody chased, and Vasseur gave the French a victory and a yellow jersey. The big losers on the day, Mario Cipollini and Eric Zabel. No more yellow dreams for them.
And for the moment, not for Bjarne Riis, last year's Tour winner either. He's still looking for 3 minutes and 59 seconds, although I don't think, Paul, he'll be too concerned about the whereabouts of Cedric Vasseur.
He might be a little bit more concerned about the place of Jan Ullrich, 5th overall at the moment, 2:56 down on the Frenchman, and probably his most serious contender.
Ullrich wearing the Championship of Germany, the jersey he won just before this Tour started. Here's Abraham Olano, another one of the pre-race favourites. Hasn't shown a lot yet. Waiting for the mountains, I think. He's just over 3 minutes off the pace. The field now heading down to the beautiful west coast of France, heading to Marennes. 217 kilometres today. The winds are blowing again, Paul, and they have caused one or two problems. Here's Eros Polly setting the pace.
But a big change in the tactics of the race, because now it's the GAN team in the white jerseys who have to do all of the work at the front. Two-pronged attack for them, really, because they want to keep the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Cedric Vasseur, and if it does come down to a sprint at the finish, then there's a chance for Frédéric Moncassin to take the stage.
Well, even I could have kept up with the first 2 hours of the pace today. 30 kilometres an hour, Paul. That's around about 19 miles an hour. So I think they switched off a little bit now because the sprinters have lost their grip on this Tour. And now other riders are going to think how they can plan. And what a list now. Here is yet another crash on the road. Riders have gone into the ditch left and right of the road and completely come to a stop.
Well, Phil, I've never seen so many crashes in the Tour de France, and I'm sure it's the fact that riders are taking risks to ride in the first 20 or 30 positions, and all of the time people going down. In fact, Cipollini's one of the men involved.
Mario Cipollini, now in red, is down as well and not looking too contented at all now. So Cipollini caught this time, and a lot of riders taking a little while to get away here. At least Cipollini's got a couple of teammates back there.
Well, one of them's Massimiliano Lelli and the other one's Paolo Fornaciari. They're going to wait for Cipollini and try and get him back into the main field. Lelli, by the way, the winner of recently of the US Pro Championships in Philadelphia.
I won't be too happy with the speed. Cipollini's getting himself ready for departure here because it's going to be a tough chase down now, but he's away. There's the long empty road ahead. A lot of team cars have already gone forward here. Cipollini, to me, Paul, looks as though he's not too happy with the way he's riding.
He looks in a little bit of pain. He doesn't look fluid. He hasn't got himself going quickly, and they'll have a hard time getting back into the main field because the main field riding this quickly doesn't wait for anyone.
Well, now we've got up to the main field, and this is the sprint for the finish here in Marennes. And looking over his shoulder, there's a Rabobank rider. I think it's Rolf Sorensen, looking probably to see where Robbie McEwen is. There's an awful lot of movement in this bunch here. They're all over the road. But leading out now, we've got Laurent Gentil of the Big Mat team. Zabel is on his wheel here. Abdou Japarov is trying to get on terms. Cipollini's got back to this group, but he's not in the hunt really. He's over to the left at the moment. Abdou Japarov going forward now, and it looks as though it's going to be Eric Zabel who'll get it. And I think Tom Steels has just hurled his water bottle at somebody in the centre of the pack. But as they come clear to the line, Zabel gets the victory. Second will be Jerome Blyleven's, I think, and Abdou Japarov third. Let's have a look at the order over the line again. Zabel notching his 15th win of the season here as Blyleven's comes clear for second. Now the judges have disqualified Zabel and also Tom Steels. Tom Steels from the race itself, Zabel from the win. So let's join Paul Sherwin to take us through what was a very dodgy finish indeed.
This is how the judges saw the finish. To begin with, a fairly normal sprint, but then Rolf Sorensen in the orange jersey for Rabobank leaps across at 35 miles an hour to the opposite side of the road. First incident on the right-hand side, the green jersey of Zabel and Cipollini come together, bouncing off each other. The judges would let that one go, that wasn't too serious. But then Eric Zabel feels somebody moving by him on the left. He leaps across to that wheel because he knows that's the one he wants. But this is the incident they didn't like. He butts into the rider with his head there, and they decided that was dangerous riding, and they relegated him to last position in the pack. First man over the line, last in the pack, and the victory was given to Jeroen Blyleven's. However, on the other side of the pack, something else was going on. Tom Steels, the Belgian champion, fighting it out with Frédéric Moncassin in the white. Now, these two riders want to get into the slipstream of Mario Cipollini. They're bumping against each other consistently. Nobody wants to give up, but in fact, it's Steels who manages to go round, even though Gan rider Moncassin nearly falls off. Steels has lost his impetus and also his stability. He falls onto the shoulder there of Traversoni, but he's lost all chance of a win. He gets mad, he takes out his bidon at 40 miles an hour and hurls it at the Frenchman. That's what the judges didn't like. They said it was aggression against another competitor, and they threw him straight away out of the race.
And the sensations don't stop there as we now tune up for stage 7, Marennes to Bordeaux. The field being flagged away with Cédric Vasseur in the maillot jaune, but not coming out to the race start this morning was Evgeny Berzin. The Russian rider, although he got to the finish yesterday, realised he had broken his collarbone. Out too with a damaged neck is the man who won the Tour of Italy, Ivan Gotti, another non-starter. While Mario Cipollini, we saw him crash, well, an injured knee. He too has abandoned the Tour de France today. 3 big names have gone from this tour. There's another one as well. Jamaluddin Abdou Japarov, who was said to have given a positive drugs test earlier in the stage of this race, has been disqualified, so he's gone home.
As always, Phil, coming into the final few kilometres, Team Telecom at the front trying to set it up for their sprinter Eric Zabel, and this time again it's the turn of Jan Ullrich in the white jersey as the champion of Germany.
Well, there's no doubt, Paul, that Zabel is very upset about the decision to relegate him last night from that victory. He felt he'd done nothing wrong. The judges saw otherwise. This group has again been split by a crash. Jens Heppner was the faller. But now we're looking at about 64 riders lining up for the finish here. And you're right, Ullrich is working well here, looking for Zabel.
A lot of teams trying to get their sprinters up there too. A former winner here in Bordeaux as well, Frédéric Moncassin. Abdou Japarov won here in 1994, but unfortunately he's been sent home early.
You're absolutely right as we go under the banner there, and this is a superb finish here. The whole of Bordeaux, I think, has turned out to watch the riders come in down the side of the River Gironde. And now the sprints are starting for the line here. La Française des Jeux is trying to break it up a little bit, but they've marked him well. Bjarne Riis himself has got control at the front now. He's looking better every day of this tour. As Riis is thinking of Zabel, there he is, lying 4 men down the line. Easy to pick out in that green jersey. Zabel wants this for very special reasons now. He's not worried about anything else. The win he wants to make sure the judges get it right.
Well, the team have put him in a great position. There's Frankie Andreu trying to get a place for himself for the coffee in his team as well. But Zabel's right in the slipstream, but it looks now as if he's been boxed in. He's in second.
So Zabel in second, but he's got a lovely smooth lead out for the line. Look at his face now as Zabel kicks with all his weight there. Moncassin long way back. Blyleven's is behind too. This isn't going to be, that's Kersipou trying to challenge young Kersipou, but Zabel gets revenge. He gets the victory in Bordeaux, as in fact he did back in 1995. But this one was rather special for him. So Eric Zabel gets the victory as we see it here. Jan Kersipou makes an appearance at last, the sprinter on the Casino team. And Jeroen Blyleven's again not quite having the strength necessary to get the kick that turns third place into a win. And Robbie McEwen, he's the Australian rider in his first tour. He crosses the line in 4th place. But that was the important one today for him. Erik Zabel getting the win he wanted. This is the overall situation after 7 stages and a prologue. Cedric Vasseur leads by 1 minute and 49 seconds. Erik Zabel, he keeps nibbling off with the time bonuses. Chris Boorman up there in 3rd place. On to stage 8 now, Sauternes to Pau, the gateway to the Pyrenees, at just 100 miles, 161.5 kilometres, 186 riders are left in.
Certainly through some of the most beautiful wine country of the world, the French Bordeaux region, and this area they're leaving from, Sauternes, makes a very clear, white, sweet wine. If you've got a chance to take some dessert, well, I think you should try it.
That's allowed, but some things aren't.
The current drug of choice in cycling is EPO. In simple terms, EPO is a drug that mimics the effects of altitude training by raising the number of red cells in the blood. And there's the problem, because medically it's impossible to tell the difference between a cyclist who's been up a mountain and one who's been down the chemist. So although dope tests carried out daily at the stage finish are fine for detecting the usual scientific suspects, they're no good for EPO. And here's where things get interesting, because the riders themselves were so concerned about EPO that they gave their support to a creative compromise. This season, in addition to drug testing, cycling's ruling body, the UCI, has also introduced what it calls health testing. And any rider with a red blood cell count over 50% is prevented from competing for his own welfare. Not banned, just sent away until his blood is back to what the UCI considers normal and healthy.
They take a little blood sample and they measure it, and if you're over 50, then you have 2 weeks to lower it again. So I think it's a good measure.
All the riders are together in the fact that they want this to be a healthy sport, and they want, they know that they have lives after cycling. So everybody wants to make sure that we're healthy professionals.
So far this season, 10 riders have been sent home for the good of their health, including former King of the Mountains Claudio Chiappucci. In the first week of the Tour, though, 4 teams have been tested, all below the limit. But the system isn't without its critics. Some riders think the ceiling has been set too low, particularly for riders like Colombia's Chepi Gonzalez, who live at altitude.
No solamente nosotros, sino habrá muchos más que manejarán pues niveles altos de hematocrito, ¿no? Entonces la UCI tendrá que hacer un estudio muy concreto a los corredores colombianos.
But 50 is low. But for people who are living on sea level, I think there are little problems. And in my career, I've seen no rider with a level of over 50 during competition.
The other criticism is that with this new blame-free approach, the UCI is ducking the moral issue by not even trying to distinguish between the dopers and the naturally high. Not to make light of the whole issue, but there is a controlled substance on public sale at the stage start every morning. 4 strong cups of coffee will put you over the UCI limit, although as with all drugs, there are well-documented side effects.
And now back to the action here, and the riders concentrating on the finish in Pau after that 100 miles. And so far, the race has been pretty nippy. The first hour they covered, Paul, nearly 49 kilometres today.
And despite several attempts at breakaways, it's all come back together for the final sprint. And again, Phil, it's Jan Ullrich on the front with 1 kilometre remaining, trying to set it up for Erik Zabel one more time.
Well, this is the last day before the mountains begin, and after that we're going to find this, I think, to be one of the hardest tours in modern times. So this is the last day for the sprinters, and they've fought hard to keep this race together. Zabel has got 2 wins under his belt. He's right in the hunt again, and once more, Jan Ullrich, he seems to be a tower of strength this year, swinging off as Bjarne Riis takes them around the corner.
It's amazing to see the amount of work that Bjarne Riis has done in this first week of the Tour de France, because tomorrow he's going to have to turn around and reinstall himself as the leader of the pack.
Absolutely right, but now they're thinking only of the sprint of 400 metres to go, and the Telecom boys are again catapulting Erik Zabel towards the line, but watch out because Nicola Minali is mixing in, and again Jerome Blijleven still looking for a real win because he's only got 1 by disqualification. But now Zabel goes for the line, and doesn't seem anybody to stop him now. As Minali comes, Moncassin in the white and Blijlevens, but they're not going to get on terms. Erik Zabel, that is a win number 16 this season for him. He's equalled Mario Cipollini as the 2 top winners so far of 1997, and that was a clean sprint for sure. Well, there was over 130 riders in this sprint. There's still a few off the back today, some 50 left behind, but there's how he does it. Kicks very strongly past his teammate here. Minali a little bit slow out of the blocks, I think, but then he came at him quite well. Moncassin also left far too far down the field, having to come over the top of Jerome Blyleven's, and I'm not too sure he actually will get over the top of Blyleven's. He won't. So for the second day in succession, Blyleven's takes third place, and equally so, the win going to Eric Zabel. He'll tell you he's had 4 wins in the Tour this year, but of course officially it's only 3. Close, but not quite as close as when Minali got the verdict by 4 millimetres over Moncassin, but still, it's a good job we have photo finish equipment on the Tour de France these years.
Quite remarkable to see the power of this man, Eric Zabel. Once he sees the finishing line, he just opens it up, and I think he owes a very big thank you to Giovanni Lombardi, who they brought across to the team this year. He certainly has been able to set him up perfectly. Learned a lot of his skill on the track scene because he is Olympic champion at the points race, but really quite remarkable the way Eric Zabel seems to time it just right.
Well, that's the ability of being a perfect sprinter, of course, and Zabel now 16 wins this season, beating Minali, Blyleven's, Moncassin and Laurie Oos of the Casino team, getting up there in 5th place in what is his first Tour de France. So, after 9 days of cycling and no bigger hill than a 4th category, we are now about to cross into the giants of the Pyrenees, the bridge between France and Spain. The mountains are with us, the big names must fight. And it's a beautiful day here at the finish at Loudenvielle, but you know the weather here in the Pyrenees can change very quickly. However, we do expect Bjarne Riis to put in his challenge. At this stage last year, Riis was already the leader, and ahead of him in Denmark was the biggest welcome any sportsman had ever been given. Cycling has since become Denmark's #1 sport, and thanks to Bjarne Riis, most of Denmark will be watching television today. You know, he's naturally a quiet man, and when Paul Sherwin spoke to him, he certainly wasn't giving much away about his plans or that of the team.
It's pretty normal.
Are you happy with the way the team is? They are the best team in the Tour for the moment.
Yeah, it's a good team. We win and we're satisfied.
I was talking to one of your friends from Luxembourg yesterday, and he said your biggest adversary is going to be Bjarne Riis.
I don't know, maybe.
Well, perhaps he is feeling the pressure after all. Well, let's join the action now as we start the climb of the Col de Tourmalet. The 2 riders out in front here are Javier Pascual from Kelme and Pascal Hervé from Festina. Little bit of mist and fog on the climb as we come up towards the summit, and still these 2 riders are clear.
Well, I think Pascal Hervé is trying to set the race up for his own teammate Richard Virenque, because these riders from Festina have always been aggressive in the mountains, and Richard Virenque has always been very successful in the Pyrenees.
Well, Hervé, a good rider in his own right, but look at the conditions here now as they do come up over the top. It's Pascual who goes over first. Hervé sits up there getting himself ready for the descent. Here comes Richard Virenque, and he's actually climbing in a small group of riders here, including his teammate Laurent Dufaux. So the 3rd and 4th, Ulrich is here, and so too is Riis. So the top 4 riders in the Tour de France last year are in this group just 20 seconds back.
And Richard Virenque looking very comfortable, I'm sure, thinking about a victory later in the day. But one man thinking about survival is the yellow jersey, Cédric Vasseur, suffering on every climb of the day so far, Phil, but always fighting his way back. The courage, I think, of the yellow jersey pushing him along.
Well, he was in trouble on the Col de Soulor as well, but he got back to the group, and he's not too far away from them as he continues to climb up the Tourmalet. Not out of the race, but out of the hunt for the yellow jersey now, Chris Boardman, who was 3rd this morning. He's crashed on the descent of the Col de Soulor, and he's actually in the autobus now with all the sprinters, so he's going to lose big time today.
But Cédric Vasseur has to take a lot of risks to try and pull himself back into the lead and keep the yellow jersey. But one man missing from this year's Tour de France is Lance Armstrong, and he decided to come and see the race in the Pyrenees. So let's catch up with his news.
Lance, in case you didn't know, was diagnosed with cancer last October, shortly after signing for the French Cofidis team. And although the cancer is now thankfully in remission, he hasn't yet been able to return to competition. You're still a member of the Cofidis team, got a contract with them. How do you see your future in racing?
Good question. I don't know. I need to just wait and see. My doctors have told me to rest this year, and so whatever happens after this year, then it's going to happen. But I still consider myself a professional cyclist.
And so too does this man, the leader of the King of the Mountains, Laurent Brochard, as we start now the final climb of Val-Thorens before we go down to the finish at Loudenvielle. Now, Brochard has had a great day so far here in the Pyrenees. He was first over the top of the Col de Soulor after 50 kilometres, and he's been second over the top of the Col d'Aspin. Pascal Hervé just survived to stay first there, but now both the early breakaways have been caught.
Well, Brochard certainly trying to put a lot of pressure on Bjarne Riis today. They feel that there is a chink in the armour of the Dane, and this is where it is. It's in the mountains, which is why they're attacking like this.
And the new champion of Germany looking very, very cool indeed here. The same cannot be said of Bjarne Riis. He looks to be suffering in the mountains. We didn't really expect this.
I think a lot of riders taken by surprise. This mountain here, the Col de Val-Thorens, is very steep indeed. In fact, only a few months ago, it was just a cattle track, and they put down this special tarmac road just for the Tour de France.
A little bit of a back road, but it was here in 1991 where we first heard about Miguel Indurain as he laid the foundations for his first Tour victory. The stage also being won on that occasion by Claudio Chiappucci. That was his first ever big stage race victory.
Great to see in this group as well. Marco Pantani has come back after the terrible accidents he's had over his career. The first one in 1995, Milan-Torino, and even having to withdraw from the Tour of Italy. But the man suffering like a dog is still Cedric Vasseur. But Phil, he keeps coming back on the descent.
He yo-yos back on, you know. He's not completely out of that yellow jersey yet, if he can pull something rather special out before the finish. Now, Richard Virenque still annoying everybody. Quick acceleration by this little man who loves to antagonise anywhere, not just in the mountains. He rides rather, reminds me of Claudio Chiappucci, the way he annoys everybody. But now, look at the cool way that Ulrich has sailed up to him, and the man not there, Paul, is Riis.
Well, Riis looked as if he was suffering an awful lot just a few moments ago. Can't respond to this attack. I think probably not panicking, realising that Virenque attacks and keeps lifting up the pace. And what Riis will try and do is, I think, come back slowly and not put himself into too much pressure. But you can see he's gone off the back of the group.
It's not good signs. This is Marco Pantani who's come up, though. Elefantino has made the contact and still looking pretty confident.
It's the first time we've really seen Bjarne Riis under pressure. He's looked so good in the Tour de France so far. He's been leading out the sprints, doing a lot of work on the flat stages, but now it looks as if he really can't match these top climbers in the Pyrenees.
Well, now the captain has taken over. He's passed his teammate, Laurent Brochard, so Richard Virenque perhaps going to start staking a claim to a fourth win in the King of the Mountains competition. The only man ahead of him is Brochard, who says he's minding the jersey for his team leader. Well, we're going to find out. But Pantani's got other ideas here. The top of Val-Thorens. Marco Pantani is flexing his legs, and Virenque will not like that, but he's lost it because he's gone over the top in second place. Ulrich third, Brochard is fourth, and we're waiting now for a time check on the whereabouts of Bjarne Riis. And Pantani isn't waiting.
Well, it's great to see Marco Pantani is finally back, because there, in fact, further down the course, 27 seconds to Bjarne Riis, and with him is Escartine. And I tell you what, Pantani taking a lot of risks, nearly losing it in that corner.
Well, he certainly is. That was a crazy right-hand turn there, but he wants to open the gaps now. They don't seem too concerned that they're towing young Jan Ulrich with them here, the revelation of the Tour last year. 2 minutes 49 seconds for the Maillot Jaune. He still has a chance of hanging on here. The Maillot Jaune is Cedric Vasseur, who was around about 2 minutes down at the start. He's still in with a real chance, and the team car knows it here. Roger Liggett it was who's saying, look, keep on doing this and you could still keep that yellow jersey.
Well, it's a downhill finish, a very treacherous one too, and Vasseur has proved all along today that he can come back on the descent. He'll not make up the whole amount of that deficit, but he can certainly pull some of it back.
Well, Ulrich is the man who's the big danger. He's lying 2 minutes 58 behind Cedric Vasseur. So at this moment in time, Vasseur is doing just enough to keep the lead.
Richard Virenque now is the man starting to take the risks here in the corners, followed by Ulrich, and Pantani decided to take up third position now. But it's amazing how well this climber goes downhill, because normally a climber is not reputedly a good descender, but Virenque is certainly taking a lot of risks with 5 kilometres remaining.
And most of that 5 kilometres is downhill now to this new finish for the Tour de France. A beautiful little place it is too, tucked away in the valley with the Pyrenees all around it. And it's been a great day of racing today. The strong men who felt they could win this Tour de France on the attack. And this man here, Laurent Brochard, he's been attacking all day. He's been dropped just now. He's coming back.
He's taken a lot of risks. He was only 23 seconds down at the top of the climb, and with a bit of luck, he'll get onto the back wheel of these three leaders.
And that, of course, is going to help Richard Virenque, because that means he's got a mate up here who will not help. Ulrich seems to be desperately trying to control this race at the front, almost as if he's trying to slow it down to await the arrival of Bjarne Riis.
I think that's why he keeps looking over his shoulders. He realises Bjarne Riis wasn't too far behind at the top of the climb there, and all he wants is for his team leader to come back up to him, which is why he's currently sitting in second position. But look at the speed of Brochard. He's got back right in the town, and I think there's around about 3 kilometres remaining.
Great bike riding by Brochard. He's come right back to 3 men he thought he'd seen the last of not very many kilometres ago. I think that was the 3 kilometres to go banner, Paul, and now a little kick uphill again. And Brochard has latched onto the back of Pantani and looks as though he's anxious to get right through onto the wheel of Ulrich.
But I think he wants to go to the front and work a little bit with Virenque, because he realises this is a chance for Richard Virenque to open up some time gaps over Bjarne Riis, and now Brochard is moving forward.
Moving forward, and is he going to go for it? He's come right over the top of Ulrich. Now, in fact, Virenque is in second wheel here. He's trying to back off the other two and give Brochard a chance.
Well, that's a great move by them, because if it does go down to this group going to the finish, I'd give all the chances to Jan Ulrich. He's certainly the fastest man here, and not too far behind Bjarne Riis. He's coming up with another Festina rider on his wheel. That's Laurent Dufaux, and a little bit of help from the man in green, Fernando Escartin.
Well, I've still got him pegged at around 35 seconds, so he may have lost a few seconds on the way down, because Pantani and co did take 1 or 2 risks on that descent, but look at the gap now, and you know they're going to allow him to go.
Well, that's remarkable, Phil. You see Jan Ulrich playing the perfect teammate. He isn't chasing down Brochard because he realises if he does peg him back, then somebody else will attack. He wants to slow down Virenque, because all he wants is for Riis to come back. He's just sitting there, leaving it up to the Frenchman.
Well, if Laurent Brochard wins this, you'll have to admit he deserves it, but what a way to win a stage. The first day in the mountains, he looked to me as though he's finished about 10 kilometres ago. He's clawed his way back, as Riis has yet to do, and he looks like he's going clear. 2 men fighting for their lives now. Bjarne Riis, last year's Tour winner and the current Tour leader. And that man, Paul, is seconds away from retaining that yellow jersey, not losing it.
It's going to be very close for Cedric Vasseur, but the man really pushing himself to the limits now is this man, Laurent Brochard. I don't know where he's getting the force from, because he's been away all day. He's been over the mountains trying to keep the lead in the King of the Mountains competition just for one more day. And his teammate, Richard Virenque, at the front of that group there, just slowing them down.
But this rider has turned his day of defeat into one of success by just joining the leaders and immediately attacking. Laurent Brochard is going to get his first stage win ever in a Tour de France, a man who's having his best ever season, and this confirms it. Now the clock will start counting as the race continues to come in behind. Now, can Richard Virenque make it a 1-2 for Festina? It's certainly been their day, their first day in the Pyrenees, and Pantani's going to have a go at Virenque, but still, Jan Ulrich doesn't want to play. Second, though, for Virenque, third Pantani, and fourth Ulrich. Here comes Riis. His loss is 41 seconds on the leader today, so he's lost a bit of time. Abraham Olano is in this group as well. He's also conceding more than a minute, but it's the yellow jersey now. If he finishes inside 3 minutes and 10 seconds, he will keep the yellow jersey. It is going to be very close to Cedric Vasseur as Pascal Lino leads him towards the line, but he's done it, and he deservedly has kept that yellow jersey. What a great show of defiance. 2:57 down.
And confirmation of the win for Laurent Brochard ahead of his own teammate Richard Virenque by 14 seconds. But Marco Pantani, well, he's back in third. For the next stage in the Pyrenees, 252 kilometres, and Vasseur still in yellow.
It was a sensational start in the mountains for the Tour de France yesterday. It left us all wondering, what will day 2 in the Pyrenees bring? Will Cedric Vasseur still lead in Andorra tonight? Will Bjarne Riis lose more time? Or will Riis become second player to young teammate Jan Ulrich? Simply brilliant yesterday. Indeed, have we seen the return of Marco Pantani? Or is this the year of the Festina team? And will the Tour de France have a French winner in Richard Virenque? And you know, the big climb here to the top of this mountain above Andorra may give us the answer to some, if not all of those questions, because this is an absolute brute. It's an all-category climb. It's one that's rarely used in the Tour de France. It will cause a lot of riders a lot of pain. After that first day in the Pyrenees, though, this is the situation this morning. Cedric Vasseur keeping his yellow jersey by just 13 seconds over Jan Ullrich. Alano is up to 3rd, Ries is up to 4th, Virenque is up to 5th. The other big names, Laurent Brochard now up to 10th, Marco Pantani comes in the frame at 15th. So the riders now rolling away as they start stage number 10, heading now for the Arcalis in Andorra. We haven't been there since 1964. But the riders deciding themselves on the Col de Porte d'Aspet, Paul, to stop and pay homage to Fabio Casatelli.
Well, that's why they rode so slowly over the first few kilometres, and Fabio Casatelli's father and mother came down for this occasion as well, as did his wife Annalisa.
Casatelli dying in the race on the descent of the Porte d'Aspet in 1995. In fact, the riders climbing up the way the race had gone down in that fateful year. Well, in fact, Casatelli's father, riding all the way from Lake Como, took him something like 3 days, Paul, and right now the race has started again, and not too much interest in getting on with the action either.
Well, not until they reach the Port d'Envillara, just on the outskirts of Andorra, a 36-kilometre climb, and once again, Phil, it's the Festina squad trying to put the pressure on Bjarne Riis.
Well, this is an amazing mountain. It's on big, wide roads, and it climbs so high. But again, Bjarne Riis is still in a little bit of trouble here, Paul, as we head up towards the Spanish frontiers, or rather the Andorran frontiers, the little republic, which is sandwiched between Spain and France. And Riis is coming back to the lead group, but he's not riding like his old self, is he?
Well, this is the second time he's been dropped there. He waited for the riders to group together at the front, slow down, and then he used all of his power to come back up. But over the last 2 days, he really has shown that he is weak in the mountains, which is why we're always seeing the blue and white jerseys of Festina at the front, putting the pressure on, attacking him when they can.
Here's Jan Ullrich. He's fallen back for a word with everybody because he certainly is not in any trouble. He's been down to his team car. He just pedals back up to this lead group as if they're out on a Sunday touring run.
Well, nice to see there, number 67, Kevin Livingstone, riding with the big riders of the Tour de France. A great climber, Kevin, riding his first Tour de France. And I wonder what he's thinking at the moment, looking at all these stars.
I hope he's not too starstruck because he's on one of the big climbs of this year's Tour. It's a very good road surface. It keeps on going. We've climbed through the gate already. We're now officially in Andorra. It's a beautiful little principality as the riders continue now very tightly packed. Laurent Dufaux, Jan Ullrich, Richard Virenque off to the right. We've got Casagrande in that red jersey. This is a good group now, and these probably, Paul, are going to be the men who will take this Tour right into the Alps as well.
Well, certainly just on the back there in the orange jersey, Peter Luttenberger. Another very good climber, Casagrande on the right there in the red jersey for Seiko. A revelation, I think, in this year's Tour de France. The Italian said he would be good, and he is confirming that he is.
Now, Virenque is trying to go for the King of the Mountains here, gathering enough points, and he gets easily over the top with hardly an effort from the rest. Dufaux was second, Casagrande went over there in third place, but the rest were right on his wheel. Now it's a long, fast descent right down towards Andorra itself, but just before we get into the city, we swing right, and we've got 2 more climbs before the finish line.
Very difficult ones too, the Col d'Ordino, and then the final ascent up to the ski resort of Arcalis.
Tortuous descent just down the top of the Envolira, 10 kilometres to go here now, and we've got the yellow jersey again in trouble, but he keeps on coming back, but I'm not so sure there's much more fight left in Cedric Vasseur. He survived by those 13 seconds, lucky for some yesterday, but now I think the second day in the Pyrenees has told their story. 10 kilometres to go, and more riders here on the course too. This is Fincato. He's just off the front, actually, Paul. He's coming back from the front group here.
He was in a leading group of riders of 4 or 5 who managed to get away on the descent there. And Cedric Vasseur himself trying to recuperate, trying to get back into the frame. But at the bottom of the climb of Arcalis, the control is all being made by the man in the white jersey, Jan Ullrich.
Well, he's constantly looked out for Bjarne Riis, and he still appears to be looking for him now. He's just started the last climb up to the finish. It's still a fair climb, and just as Cedric Vasseur has gone clear, in fact, what happened, Vasseur just got around them, but now that's Fincato behind, and they are just in front of Jan Ullrich, and Ullrich looks to me as though he can contain his enthusiasm no longer, because and Virenque is getting on terms when he needs to, because Ullrich now is waiting for no one. He seems to have decided that Bjarne Riis has to be cut adrift.
Well, I think he got so fed up with the attacks that came coming from Virenque and from Dufaux, he realised the best way to defend the lead is in fact to attack. So he's gone out there, he's blown by Cédric Vasseur in the yellow jersey, and now he's on his own with just one man in front. That's Jean-Philippe Daujois from the Mutual Seine-et-Marne.
Well, there's Fincato. He's going backwards, and here comes the little man with the big heart. Marco Pantani has realised it's time to try and get on terms. He's come right up to Richard Virenque on this final climb. The Danish flag on the right is looking a little bit tarnished right now because Ries is again in difficulty.
Well, Ries certainly cannot respond to any of these attacks. In fact, the attack originated at the bottom of the climb by Richard Virenque, currently in second position. But then all of a sudden, the man with the white jersey of the champion of Germany just accelerated and went away on his own. And now the last man in front of him, Jean-Philippe Daujois, and very soon I think he too will be history.
Well, he took the race to the rest, but I'm afraid he's paid the price. He took a good look across at Jan Ullrich, and if he took a good look at his face, he can see this man is not under pressure at all. Ullrich has waited as much as he could. Yesterday, he was definitely under the command of Bjarne Riis. Today, I guess he's realised that Riis hasn't quite got the legs of 1996. This young man could be racing to the yellow jersey now, and he's got to defend that for an awful long time if he wants to win the Tour de France.
Well, these two riders are supposed to be climbers. They must be able to do something against the onslaught of Jan Ullrich. The time gap at the moment, 25 seconds to these two riders, and in fact, Bjarne Riis is 45 seconds down on his own teammate, Jan Ullrich.
Well, here is a chance to have a look at Bjarne Riis. I wonder what he's thinking now because he's been dropped back into this rear group. He's just ahead of that bunch which is forming behind him. Gave the camera a big stare there. He won't be happy with the camera around him. Not in this situation. Virenque and Pantani, two great climbers. Pantani, I think, perhaps the better of the two, but they're making no impression at all on this rider. He's only won 2 races this year, Paul, the National Championship and a stage just recently in the Tour of Switzerland, and yet he seems to have timed his form to absolute perfection.
Well, I think he was just programmed for the Tour de France this year. He did nothing in the early part of the season, trained in Lanzarote, but one man who was riding exceptionally well until the last couple of days, Cédric Vasseur, in serious difficulty. But Phil, the power here of Jan Ullrich is quite remarkable. Rarely do you see a man sit so firmly in the saddle on a mountain pass and hold the bottom of the handlebars like that.
Well, he was the world champion back in 1993, and since then he's turned professional. He was kept out of the Tour until last year, and last year he came in and he finished second, and now he's looking for his first maillot jaune. There's Abraham Olano, also surprisingly so to us, having a little bit of difficulty here. He's not far from his homeland of Spain. He can expect support. He is now being watched over by Riis.
But look at the mask on Riis, the man from Denmark. He really is suffering. He must be going through all kinds of hell on his machine this afternoon. He knows he's got to try and recover this day in the Pyrenees if he wants to win again like he did last year. But Dufaux himself suffering. Look at the face on Dufaux. He really is pushing himself. But all the time, the man at the front, Ullrich, is time trialling.
And just look at that. It's the first time that I've seen this climb as well, and I must say it is a very difficult climb indeed. Well, I'm sure that Jan Ullrich, he may have come down looking at it in training, but he will never have raced up this climb, and he's showing it absolute disdain as he comes under 4 kilometres for the chase group. Remember that Virenque and Pantani are in front, and Ullrich is already heading up to the 3-kilometre banner.
I don't think happy with the fact that the cameras are there watching him fall away from the leaderboard. But these two men, both of them great climbers, both of them with 2 stage victories in the mountains to their credit, and Richard Virenque's both were in the Pyrenees.
Well, this has been a long, cruel day today, and by the time the riders get there, for many of them, they'll have been in the saddle for more than 8 hours. Riis being guarded now by Laurent Dufaux, although I think both are just trying to match one another to get to the top of the mountain, because this man is putting time between them now. The last check we had on Bjarne Riis, Paul, is over 2.5 minutes.
Quite remarkable. In fact, Virenque and Pantani are at 55 seconds, and Francesco Casagrande, he's at 1:15. But you know, Jan Ullrich today is not only going to take the stage victory at the end of this stage, but also the yellow jersey.
And he's heading up towards the finish now for what has got to be his biggest ever victory. Yes, he's been a world amateur champion, but now he's climbed this mountain like the great Eddy Merckx of old, who was also a very young amateur world champion. And now this man seems to have just about everything. Second in the Prologue time trial. He's never been caught by any of the crashes over that first opening week, always positions himself well, and today he could not contain his enthusiasm anymore at all. He has gone for it and he has opened up the gaps.
Well, he's no longer a teammate. Now he will be the leader of Team Telecom. And at the end of this little straight here, Phil, he's going to be the first German to wear the yellow jersey since Klaus-Peter Thaler did in 1978.
And with all respect to Klaus-Peter, who is a really nice guy, he was never a potential winner of the Tour de France. But I think this man is. As he comes up towards the line, he's still sprinting for time, victory and yellow all at the same moment. And he comes up to the end of 252 kilometres. There's the clock. It is almost 8 hours. 7 hours and 46 minutes by the time he gets to the line. And Jan Ullrich is going to claim the race leader's yellow jersey. Of that we are quite confident now. This has been a superb show by the champion of Germany, who now becomes the German leader of the Tour de France. Pantani racing up the mountain. Can he take second? He was beaten by Virenque last time he tried it yesterday at the mountain top finish. But this time, maybe it'll be different. He's coming up towards the line. Virenque's not even going to attempt it. And the gap about 1 minute and 8 seconds. Further down, though, look at the gaps opening here. Bjarne Riis has dropped to Laurent Dufaux. In fact, Dufaux looks to me as though he's coming back, but not quick enough. 3:22. So there's stage 10 result. It takes some reading this. 1 minute and 8 to Pantani. These are huge time gaps of the quality of the great Jacques Anquetil. And the overall standings now, this is a big gap. Virenque is second, but at 2:38 behind. Further down the list, men we used to talk about, like Laurent Jalabert, 24 minutes back. And so, the man in the maillot jaune is the leader of the Tour now. And for him, it's been one of the greatest moments of his life. Let's join Paul Sherwin now, who's with him.
Jan, it was an absolutely fantastic day for you today.
Yes, I'm very, very happy. I win this stage. This is a hard Pyrenees stage, and yeah, I'm very happy. I have the yellow jersey, and
I'm sure he is. And also another jersey change as we now head back into France. Richard Virenque is the new leader in the King of the Mountains.
Well, here he is, the new superstar of the Tour de France, the man who is making all of the headlines in the newspapers here in Andorra this morning. Well, there's nothing new about the Telecom team being in charge at this stage of the Tour de France with 11 days to go, but there is something new in the man who is in that yellow jersey, Jan Ullrich. Now, who is the number one on the Telecom team? Is it Ullrich or is it Bjarne Riis, the defending Tour champion? Last night, the Telecom team had to make some decisions, so Gary Imlach was at their hotel.
From the way the mechanics had the bikes set up outside, it looked as though Telecom had two number ones. But manager Walter Godfrot quickly made it clear that from now on his team would be working for a single leader, and it wouldn't be Bjarne Riis.
Jan, il est sans discussion le plus fort du tour. Quand il a Pantani et Virenque, qui sont les deux meilleurs grimpeurs du tour, il a aussi plus qu'une minute dans la dernière montée, alors il n'y a pas de discussion. Et dans l'équipe, maintenant, vous allez voir, c'est pas encore du temps, vous allez voir Bjarne Riis de parler un peu, mais il va mettre en service de Ullrich, à mon avis. Il n'y a pas de problème.
Perhaps not a problem for the team manager, but to be deposed so comprehensively by a teammate can't have been easy for Riis.
Je crois que Bjarne il est un peu désolé de lui-même quand on gagne le tour une année avant. Alors aujourd'hui, c'est Jan qui prend la grande option pour gagner le tour. Alors, mais je crois comme équipier, il est content. C'est pas encore vu, mais c'est un homme qui est très sportif, très fair, qui accepte aussi quand il est battu.
Well, I wonder if he does. We're going to find out anyway as the tour goes on. 178 riders now leaving Andorra. They go out by the way they came in. The difference is, of course, this man is now in the maillot jaune, Jan Ullrich. The top of the Port d'Envalira awaits the riders, and then it's more or less with a few ripples all downhill to Perpignan. And again, as we come up towards the top of the climb, they've climbed it as a bunch, Paul. Not a wheel turned in anger, and over the top of the climb, we've had Richard Virenque.
Well, then the riders realising now that it is a downhill finish. And at the back of the main field, Maximilian Chandry, 81st overall, more than an hour behind the leader, Jan Ullrich.
Can you believe that? But there really hasn't been a stage for Max Chandry. He hasn't appeared in any of the breakaways yet. That's most unlike him. And Chris Bourman, who was third as he came into the mountains just 3 days ago, has now dropped right away from the leaderboard, and he's very disappointed by that. The Col de Schule, across over this climb here, again Virenque is in the thick of the action, followed by Neil Stevens, his teammate, and in fact the first 4 riders, Festina, they really are tying up the mountains competition.
They certainly are, but as we get a little bit closer to Perpignan, a lot of riders getting frisky with the possibility of a stage victory, and the fact that tomorrow is a day of rest. The riders will be travelling up to Saint-Étienne.
But after that, of course, it's the time trial, and then into the Alps with Alpe d'Huez itself, and a new finish at Courchevel. But the attack's now taking place here, the riders trying to shape up the day's racing. The scenery around here is absolutely stunning. Long, thin line of the peloton.
Once they got into the streets of Perpignan, Phil, this breakaway had got away. Sitting in third position is Laurent Debian. The first position there with the yellow jersey of Polti is Sergei Uchikov, and the man in the middle is Carlo Finco.
Well, these are the remnants of a 9-man breakaway which got clear. Museo was one of them, but he's dropped out of it now. 2 kilometres to go, and it looks as though the Telecom team are trying to get themselves back on terms, but they're a few seconds behind, and I don't think they're going to close this gap down. We've got Carlo Finco, Sergei Uchikov, Laurent Debian. It's Debian on the front at the moment. Now Uchikov goes through. Former stage winner of the Tour. In fact, he won at Revel at the expense of Lance Armstrong a couple of years ago. But Finco feels he's going to have to start the lead out. Well, he's gone a bit soon, and he's realised it. He's sat up. Now, Uchikov is my favourite, Paul.
Well, Uchikov is the fastest of these 3. Finco has never won a race in his whole career, but Laurent Debian, he's on the comeback trail after having a positive dope test last year in the Tour, the 4 days of Dunkirk.
Well, that cost him his place on the GAN squad as well. Now, Finco, this time I think is the real attack. Little bit of a slow realisation from the others as Sergei now comes through on the right of our picture. And Uchikov now has got the inside, and dancing around the back is Laurent Debian. He's not well known as a sprinter. Little bit of a hook there, I think, from Sergei Uchikov, and in fact Debian complaining about that as he crosses the line in first place. Hardly seconds have passed by. Here comes the sprint now. Zabel is in the thick of it, so too is Frédéric Moncassin, Fabio Baldato and Traversoni, new faces at the front, but it looks as though Zabel is going to clean up for the green jersey here. He's sprinting so well. On the line now, it's taken in fact by Moncassin ahead of Eric Zabel. Let's have a look at this again though. This is where he leans on Laurent Debian. And Debian, remember, not a pure sprinter, otherwise he probably wouldn't have hesitated there. He'd just gone through the gap anyway. But I don't think the judges are going to like that at all. And if they continue their trend, I'm afraid Sergei Uchikov is going to be relegated. And as he crosses the line on this slow motion picture, in fact, they are saying they have relegated him. So Uchikov has gone to third place. Debian will be declared the winner. This is the sprint for fourth, being taken by Moncassin. This is the incident, Paul.
Well, this is what the judges didn't like. They say Sergei Uchikov prevented Debian coming through, and at the end of the day, they gave the victory to the Frenchman, Laurent Debian. Carlo Finco, will he be happy with second place, and Uchikov not very happy with third?
In fact, that was very modestly put. In fact, he was fuming with third. He felt he should have been given the victory. Overall, no change at all today. And now, the day after the rest day, the riders have moved up into Saint-Étienne for a hilly time trial over 55 kilometres. This is stage number 12. Now, can this man fight back into the frame, knowing that his teammate is now the leader of the Tour?
Well, it'd be interesting to see just what tactics a lot of these riders adopt. Rumour has it that some of them are going to switch bikes halfway around the course, and at the moment we're looking at the man wearing number 98, and that in fact was Cédric Vasseur.
And this is Abraham Olano making his start, and also didn't have a great run through the Pyrenees, Olano. Back out with Bjarne Riis, who's unaccustomedly a little bit low down the overall classification at the moment. Still to go, and about to get the signal. Richard Virenque, the leader now in the King of the Mountains, and looking to win that for a record 4th year in a row.
Well, Olano looking very comfortable here. He's on a standard machine for the moment. The first part of this course is very hilly indeed. The riders, I think some of them will actually change at the top of the mountain onto the low-profile machines, but it's the day of reckoning for this man.
Jan Ulrich about to make the start. Now, can he give us confirmation as to his strength? The best time already finished, by the way, is by Frank Vandenbroek. 1 hour, 21 minutes and 8 seconds. This is the check at point number 3 at 41 kilometres. Pantani going through very quick time for him. 1:4:09.
Well, it certainly does show that this course suits the climbers, and it may well be that Richard Virenque can do something special. Time trialling is his weakness, but behind him on the road, this man is really making inroads into the lead of the little Frenchman.
And sorry about the little bit of picture breakup again. It's those trees on the right which is causing the problems. But now Jan Ullrich is setting the trend as we go along. Pantani has set the new mark at 1:4:09, much quicker than Van den Broek, and all of the others are slipping behind him. Now Ries is out on the road, and the last man, Virenque and Ullrich, they are the last two on the road.
Well, out on the course, Bjarne Ries putting a good time in. He's gone through the 41-kilometre mark in exactly the same time as Marco Pantani, while at the finish line, Fernando Escartin losing a little bit, coming across in 7th place with 1 hour, 21 minutes, 47.
Well, now look at this. Jan Ullrich here is beginning to pick up Richard Virenque. This is going to be a nasty surprise. I don't think Virenque really expected to be caught by Jan Ullrich, but he is firing this man from Germany. He's bridging the gap, and we're on the climb here. Now, which side is he going to pass him by? He's not too sure as he dodges around, but Richard Virenque, who's a great climber, has no answer to the pure strength of the German.
Well, the final few kilometres here, very fast indeed. And in fact, you can see that Jan Ullrich has changed to a low-profile machine. He's wanting to take advantage of the aerodynamics and try and push himself up to speeds over the closing metres.
And now Pantani is going to rewrite the leaderboard here. He comes in 1:20.06, confirming his great times out on the course. Marco Pantani in now with the best time. Still Ries, Alano, Virenque and Ullrich to finish. But we know now that Virenque has been caught for 3 minutes by Ullrich, although he's still trying to slip him.
Well, Bjarne Ries has faded quite a bit, Phil, over the last few metres, but he is going to go inside the time of Marco Pantani. That's the time to beat, 1 hour 20.06. And Bjarne Ries looks to me as if he's going to come in with a new best time, but he looks very slow coming over the final few metres here, as if he's really having to dig very deep indeed. There it is, new time, 1 hour 19.32.
34-second beating of Pantani as we go back out on the course. This is now the descent, the last 14 kilometres off the top of the mountain and down towards Saint-Étienne. It's quite a tortuous descent, but it's very dry condition today, thankfully so. And now it looks as though this man is setting new trends, but we'll have to find out first if Alano's going to match anybody's time. It's been a good ride by Abraham Alano here. Bjarne Ries has got best. I think Abraham Alano might fall just a little bit outside of this. It's a long way up this straight here. Best time is 1:19.32. He's just going to be outside the time of Ries, so he'll go second on the board. So all of the stars are finishing very close together.
But this man is doing a great fight, Phil. Richard Virenque just in front of him there. He can see Jan Ullrich. He hasn't given up. He's been caught by a superior time trialist, but he's riding on courage. He doesn't want this man to blow him away.
Well, Virenque has made a very, very nerveless descent down that mountain. He's closed the gap right up on Ullrich, who seemed to be pulling away. Look at this massive crowd here in the cycling capital of France. And now Ullrich is going to confirm he really is a top contender for final honours in this race. Ullrich, his time is amazing. He's way up on Bjarne Ries, his teammate and last year's Tour winner. He's 3 minutes in front, don't forget, of Richard Virenque, who is just behind him now. So he's conceding all of that time, as Ullrich is going to set a unique time here that nobody has approached all day. He's going to be minutes quicker than Bjarne Ries. This is going to be a Miguel Indurain style time trial for young Jan Ullrich. 1:16.24, 3 minutes quicker than Bjarne Ries. That is an amazing result for the German.
But you know, Richard Virenque's going to be happy, Phil, too, because that time that he will come in with will be good enough for second place.
So Richard Virenque did keep Jan Ullrich in his sights, but he lost 3 minutes nonetheless, and that's going to take a bit of recuperating, even for a climber in the Alps, which are now to come. And the road ahead really is a tough one now. Richard Virenque, though, retains second overall. On the stage, he's finished second as well, but conceding 3 minutes and 4 seconds to Ullrich. Ries was third, but he also conceded more than 3 minutes. Overall, Ullrich now leads this tour by 5 minutes and 42 seconds over Richard Virenque. Abraham Alano is third, but 8 minutes back. Now they face the climb of Alpe d'Huez, 203.5 kilometres for the 172 survivors of this tour. This is going to be a tough one. They are now going to the Mecca of cycling, the Alpe itself. Well, in all the years that I've come to Alpe d'Huez, I've never seen an atmosphere quite like this. We've estimated perhaps 250,000 people are on its slopes. The Tour de France has arrived at the big mountain.
We know there are 30,000 Danish making their way here. We know there are busloads of Pantani supporters, and I'm quite sure now there are indeed plenty of supporters for Jan Ullrich. Well, we've seen the German conquer the Pyrenees. We've seen him ride the brilliant time trial. Now, just how is this sporting revelation going to climb up Alpe d'Huez? Let's go to Paul Sherwin, who's now going to analyse his climbing style.
The most important thing about riding the mountain passes is trying to conserve as much power for as long as possible. Now, when I rode my first Tour de France, Barry Hoban said to me, when you're approaching a long climb like this with all these zigzag turns, the only way to do it is to go around the outside of the corner where it's not quite as steep. Now, the amazing thing about Jan Ullrich is he climbs with sheer power. As he comes up to the corners, you can see he's sitting very comfortably on his saddle, all of the power coming from the back part of his body and his thighs. But when he comes into the corner, he hugs the line right around the steepest part of the apex. If you've got a chance at home, go up one of the local climbs and try riding on the inside. You'll see just how tough it is. Once he then gets to the straight part, he accelerates away, not even getting out of the saddle, indicating this man climbs with pure power. But Alpe d'Huez has 21 corners like that. Does he have the power to be able to do it 21 times? I'm not so sure.
Well, we're about to find out, Paul, because the whole field are racing through the lovely little town of Bourg-d'Oisans at kilometre 187. Very shortly they will turn left and the climb of the Alpe will be all before them because it's non-stop climbing right up to the finishing line. Field basically all together here. It's been a gentle ride, but not all good news for everybody. Festina trying to get their men right into the launching pad, but at 54 kilometres today, Chris Boorman of Great Britain abandons the Tour in tears, suffering from crash injuries and torn neck muscles from his fall on the Col de Soulor. Right, well, on we go, Paul, and we're now heading up the mountain itself, and Festina in the driving seat again.
Well, every time there's a mountain coming, you know, they really will try and put Jan Ullrich and Bjarne Riis under pressure. Bjarne Riis still riding very well, but at the moment I think he's playing a secondary role to the man wearing the yellow jersey. This is Laurent Brochard at the front, no longer in the polka dot jersey, but now riding as a teammate for his own man, Richard Virenque.
And I wouldn't like to be in this bunch now because the speed they approach Alpe d'Huez, and it is such a steep climb, but all of the domestiques trying to get their climbers to the start of it together. It is very, very quick as they race over the little river here. Now they'll turn left and then the climb will have begun. Alpe d'Huez is on the horizon. Well, I think this is really the climb everybody has been waiting for, Paul, and immediately the yellow jersey is there, the polka dot jersey is there, and Casagrande is there, and Riis is there.
Well, that's remarkable because, Phil, this is the mecca of the climbs for all of the climbers. Every climber wants to win here on Alpe d'Huez, and I'm quite sure Richard Virenque does as well because he's never won a stage of the mountains in the Alps.
That's right, but he has won 2 stages in the Pyrenees as he now dances behind Jan Ullrich. This rider certainly isn't afraid to carry that maillot jaune right at the front of affairs, is he?
Well, it's amazing. He's now the leader of the Tour de France, and I would have thought that Bjarne Riis would have come to the front to help him out just a little bit because he does need some encouragement. He does need somebody alongside him just to say, look, the team's here, we're still supporting you.
He's still looking for Bjarne Riis. He constantly looks over his shoulder to see where Riis is. He is an amazing rider. It's almost as if he's the reluctant leader of the Tour.
It's very strange to see him riding like this. There on the right-hand side is Elefantino, Marco Pantani, now nicknamed also El Pirato, the pirate. And he really is trying to put some pressure on these riders. Now he moves to the front, and Riis still looking very comfortable.
Well, he too has scored big victories in the Pyrenees, now looking for a win in the Alps as well. This is a savage acceleration by Pantani. This is on the early slopes of the climb as well. Virenque is the answer to it. He's right with him, but I wonder what damage he's doing behind. Everybody is filed out behind Marco Pantani. Ullrich is there as well. We saw Pantani throw his hat off just before he came through to start this acceleration. And this is the secret of good climbers, Paul, the way they can accelerate.
Well, it's not just that, it's the way they can accelerate again and again. And it's interesting to see this time Bjarne Riis is there. He's sitting on the back of this group of 4 riders, so it may well be that after the tough time he had in the Pyrenees, he has finally recuperated.
And Casagrande and Escartin are the losers there. The man we've also not mentioned, Abraham Olano. We haven't seen anything of him since the real attack started on this climb. Now we've got these 4 riders going up the slopes. I have never seen so many people on this mountain, and I've seen every climb here except the one of Fausto Coppi. I'm not quite as old as 1952.
but it was amazing driving here, you know, 40 kilometers, 25 miles of traffic jam just to get to the bottom of the slope here. It is remarkable. I think this is the greatest Alpe d'Huez we've witnessed in these recent years.
A perfect day as well. It's very often cold on this mountain at the top, but it's beautiful today. You can see the shadows of the riders. Now Pantani is setting the pace and looking for help from no one at the moment. And Ulrich, who started the tempo at the bottom, now content to follow. These four riders looking pretty solid just now.
Well, Pantani's great to see him back. There's the earring that's earned him the nickname of the Pirate. He's just getting into a rhythm here, just pushing the pressure on everybody else. Looks over his shoulders to see what sort of damage he's doing. But you know, he really is flying, and I think most certainly he's back. And I was quite convinced after that crash he had in the Tour of Italy that we wouldn't see a great Marco Pantani here in the Tour de France. But I think he certainly is back, and he's great.
I don't think anybody seriously thought he would ever come back from the crash he had in Milan-Turin, which caused all of his problems, but he has come back. He is very much a part of this Tour again. Remember, he's had a third-place finish in the Tour de France, as well as winning a couple of stages.
So it's amazing to watch the difference between the co-climbers at the front, Marco Pantani and Richard Virenque, bobbing around on the machines, using the upper part of their body to try and keep the gears going around, while all the time Ulrich is sitting down.
A glance at the second group here. We've just seen Alano. There's Jimenez, the champion of Spain. There's Alano, 151. Escartin is here. Now, this is interesting. That's Laurent Madouas also in this group. Now, look at this, Paul. We've gone back to the leaders just in time because it looks as though they've cracked Rees.
Well, I think he's put the white flag up there because he couldn't stay with the pace being set by the two climbers. He's just going to ride at his own pace now and leave it up to Jan Ullrich in the yellow jersey to mark the two best climbers of this year's Tour de France, Marco Pantani and Richard Virenque. But still, Ullrich looking very calm, sitting down. It's amazing the power he uses when he climbs.
He's such a deceptive bike rider, sitting there solid as a horse. Now, further down, number one, last year's winner, is in desperate trouble yet again on the mountain she loved so much last year, where he gained all of his time in the Alps. Now in the Alps on the first day of serious climbs, like it was in the Pyrenees first day, Bjarne Riis is in difficulty. There's the flags that will cheer him on. The official figure coming out of Denmark was 30,000 spectators were all heading for the Alpe.
Well, that's an awful lot of beer, I think, is going to be drunk tonight because the Danes certainly do like their lager. Marco Pantani, he's not thinking about beers at the moment. All he wants to do is try and crack the two men that are with him. Because actually, bear in mind, Phil, that he's the defending champion at Alpe d'Huez because the Tour didn't come here last year.
That's absolutely right. A winner here, of course, yes. And I'd almost forgotten about that, actually, Paul. But Pantani is the defending champion of Alpe d'Huez. And Bjarne Riis is the defending champion of the Tour de France. Now he knows the situation he's in. He knows that he's hitting just about his limit. Now he's going to have to settle down and hope he recovers as the climb goes on.
That's the only thing he can do. Find a rhythm that's comfortable for himself and hope that by the top of the climb he doesn't lose too much time. And these men at the front, though, really are flying up the mountain. The record as well for the ascent of the climb here held by Marco Pantani himself when he won the climb just a couple of years ago.
And that's circa 38 minutes as Pantani continues to keep the tempo here. And the crowd you can hear cheering all of the way, but this little climber staying out of the saddle now, riding on the bottom of the handlebars. No relaxed climbing at all from him. He's just keeping the rhythm high. He actually looks as though he might be causing a little bit of distress here to Jan Ullrich. He doesn't look as cool all of a sudden.
He is starting to bob and weave just a little bit, but it's amazing. Pantani has not asked anyone for any help. He's put everyone under pressure, and a man who thought he could ride well on the Alpe d'Huez, Luc Leblanc, also falling away from the leader. He's a long way behind.
Well, this hasn't been the season for poor old Luc Leblanc. He was looking set, and oh crikey, back to the leaders, and it looks as though Ullrich has cracked, unless Virenque opened the door and pulled round behind him.
Well, I think Virenque just couldn't stay on the wheel of Marco Pantani, and the reaction now has come by Jan Ullrich, and he's closed down on Pantani, the climber, so it just goes to show how strong the man from Germany is. To respond to an attack like that really is quite remarkable.
Well, this is a superb piece of tempo riding, but very briefly, as I was saying about Luc Leblanc, he had all set to finish third in the Tour already. He had that spectacular crash in the time trial there, coming down a mountain, and I don't think he's really refound himself at all. He's struggled every day in this event.
The one man struggling now, Phil, is Richard Virenque. In fact, that acceleration out of the corner there has put the climber from France into difficulties, and he couldn't stay with the two leaders, so now just two men up the road, Marco Pantani in the yellow jersey of Jan Ullrich.
Well, the one thing that Richard can be sure of is plenty of support, but he's losing ground here, and this is the first time we've seen a little climber from France be attacked as well. But really, Pantani at 10 kilometres to go has just simply stayed out of the saddle. Now he's starting to go in and out of the saddle. He's kept the rhythm so high, and they've all tried and so far failed to match him. Only Ulrich again surviving.
Well, he'll get a lot of confidence out of that, because I think the man he will have been a little worried about on the climb of Alpe d'Huez is Richard Virenque. Once again, he gets out of the saddle. He accelerates, trying to put the pressure on Ulrich, because I think before the summit, he'd like to get rid of this man from Germany. But look at the face on Richard Virenque. He's suffering like a dog, and all he can do now is just hope that he can pull himself back.
Well, he knows he has a little bit of time in hand, and is probably just as well, because I think he's finally decided to let the little pirate escape. He's 9 minutes 11 seconds behind Jan Ullrich in the overall classification, lying 5th at the moment, and so every pedal rev now will gain time on everybody in the Tour.
We see how Pantani went round the wide part of the corner there. It was not quite as steep. He came out of it, accelerated away, and the gap opened up immediately. Ulrich isn't panicking though. He's just sitting there, setting a nice pace for himself, making sure that Pantani doesn't open up the gap too rapidly.
So Marco Pantani is doing what I think just about everybody on this mountain came to see him do. This magic little climber go away from the rest of the race. He is now pedaling a higher place in the overall classification for sure. He's not going to damage the lead of Jan Ullrich today. Ullrich perhaps wisely knows that. He's not crucifying himself, trying to hold the back wheel of a man who is simply on a mission.
But it's amazing, he's always looking over his shoulder, trying to see exactly what's happening behind him. This time he's not looking for Ries. In fact, he's looking for the whereabouts of Richard Virenque. But Marco Pantani, well, his wings have come back.
This is the Battle of the Alpe, and the Italians have had a lot of success here. They started it back in 1952 with Fausto Coppi. Then came Gianni Bugno with a couple of wins. Then Roberto Conti got a win here, and that was his only win after 10 years as a pro, and still is. He's been a pro 14 years now. And now Pantani trying for a second time.
And interestingly enough, that Roberto Conti rides on the same team now as Marco Pantani. Worked very well this year in the Tour of Italy, and I think he's having his best Tour de France in several years as well.
Jean-Marie Leblanc, director of the Tour de France, also rode this race on 2 occasions in the late 60s, enjoying the best seat in the house just behind Jan Ullrich. But this is the man who is opening the waters. Here comes the Red Indian. I think he's Danish, this chap. I met him earlier on the slopes, but he certainly enjoyed his lagers today, and I don't think Pantani has any wish to hear any war cries down his left ear.
Well, maybe it was the smell of alcohol in his breath. Pantani wanted to get away because he feels with just 22 seconds advantage, he needs as much oxygen as possible.
But I have to say, the crowd here full of good humour, and they've come to see great sportsmen in action, and there's none greater than Pantani when he's climbing. Here we go, back to the slow motion now. There's a little tickle in the ribs to push the Red Indian to the left.
Well, the time gap's there, 22 seconds to Jan Ullrich, 42 seconds to Richard Virenque, and 1 minute 22 to Bjarne Riis. So Riis falling away quite rapidly.
This is not going to be the Tour of Bjarne Riis now, but it's still looking like the Tour of Jan Ullrich, because he's still second on this mountain despite the escape of Marco Pantani. Virenque isn't far behind. Casagrande, Riis, and we haven't caught sight of those for a while, but they are the next on the climb.
Here, in fact, he's joined by Francesco Casagrande, the Casagrande at the front in the red jersey. He's setting the pace, trying, I think, to make sure that Bjarne Riis and himself stay in the picture. But Marco Pantani, well, he's on a mission. He's looking to become the first rider to win 2 years in succession, I suppose, because the Tour didn't come here last year. So he's really hoping that he's going to be the champion and really walking himself into 3rd place.
Well, let's hope so. And certainly if he does, he'll knock out Alano, because Alano has been lost on the early part of this climb today. He got dropped very early on. And Pantani's under the 4 kilometres to go banner. The Italian flag right alongside him there, but I bet that gentleman can't hold that pace too long as he wipes out half the crowd on the right.
The very dangerous part of the course here. He's just gone under the 4 kilometre banner. Once he gets to around about 3, then the barriers appear, and it makes it a lot safer for the riders on the final few corners up into the town of Alpe d'Huez. But Pantani, well, nobody's going to touch him now as he goes under that banner.
And this is Ullrich now under the same 4 kilometre banner, and that's not too far behind. He's probably around about 25 seconds down at the moment, so he's not losing that much.
fact, Richard Virenque is losing a little bit of time. His time gap there was 1 minute and 2 seconds, so the French climber falling away. But Phil, the crowds here are unbelievable. I don't remember ever seeing them as big as this.
Well, we used to say get there early in the morning a few years ago if you want to see this climb from a good spot. Then we altered that to get there the day before. Well, now we know there are many people coming here up to 3 days before just to claim their regular spot on the mountain.
This is the first time that Jan Ullrich would have experienced this climb with all the crowd out there. A lot of Germans have come now to the Tour de France as well to support this man, because I think they can see the makings of a champion, a new man on the block, the man who I think is probably going to dominate the Tour de France for the next few years. But Phil, just look at the crowds.
Well, officially they're telling us that 750,000 people are lining the 9 miles of Alpe d'Huez today. That might be an exaggeration, but when you see shots like that, I'm no longer sure it is. And Marco Pantani has now got himself between the barriers, the safe stretch of the course. These barriers put up after that debacle we had a few years ago when Fabio Parra was brought literally to a standstill by the crowd and the block cars. But a fine right-hand turn by Marco Pantani. Taking your advice there, Paul, he went round the outside.
But I don't think he expected to be going quite that fast. He's flying up the final kilometre here of the Alpe d'Huez. But you know, I hope he doesn't make the mistake he made 2 years ago, because he also nearly lost it in the final left-hand bend to the finish and went straight on into the parking lot.
Well, this time I think he'll be guided simply by the crowds and the barriers. We're now into the lovely town here on the top of the mountain of Alpe d'Huez. This town literally opens for the arrival of the Tour de France. In the next 48 hours, it will have all closed down again, awaiting the ski season. But at this time of the year, in July, it is vibrant, and there are thousands of people here now. We're going into the lower slopes of its streets, and then it will climb steadily to the summit.
Jan Ullrich riding very sensibly, still hovering around 25 seconds behind Marco Pantani. He's not pulling anything back, but I think he'll be very happy with the ride that he's put in today. But Pantani now into the town square. Across the town square, he'll get the left-hand turn, and then it'll be up to the finish.
He's got about 600 metres lead over Jan Ullrich as he heads up towards the finish. That's around 35 seconds. All the road is his now as he moves into the last 500 metres to the line. There'll be the sharp left-hand turn where even Greg LeMond has made a mistake at one occasion finishing here. You've got to watch it. It's easy to overshoot it, but Pantani now, this victory is going to be equally as special to him as Zabel's revenge on his disqualification last week was to him, because this means he is back as a big-time climber. He didn't have time to see himself on the big screen there as he swung round the left-hand bend, but now he's going to win this stage the second time in succession, although there's a gap of 1 year in between. Marco Pantani of Mercatoni Uno will be the winner at Alpe d'Huez today. He will gain time on everyone. He will climb up the overall classification as well. This is going to be a great feeling for him. He gets the victory, 203 kilometres covered. He's the first to the top of the Alpe, and the gap is around about half a minute for the next man. The Maillot Jaune of the Tour de France, Jan Ullrich, is coming home, and Ullrich again confirming he is most definitely the man to beat in this year's Tour, and I don't think anybody can or will. He grits his teeth. He really has suffered on this climb, but now he's become a complete all-round bike rider. 46 seconds the gap.
It's amazing he still had time to look over his shoulder to see what the time gap was. Richard Virenque has failed a little bit over the final kilometre. He's going to go almost 1.5 minutes behind the winner, Marco Pantani, but I think he'll be more worried about the fact of how much time he's lost to Jan Ullrich.
So Richard Virenque is coming up, sprinting for his life here. He will just about hang on to his second place overall, I think, as the polka dot jersey gets more points for third place in the King of the Mountains competition as well. So the result of the stage to Alpe d'Huez, Marco Pantani gets a second win here ahead of Ullrich, Virenque and Bjorn Riester in fifth place, 2 minutes 28 seconds back for him. So the man who's the champion of Alpe d'Huez is Marco Pantani. Now, can he do it all again? We stay in the Alps as we move on now to Courchevel, a place we haven't been before. And the party set to continue in the Alps today with 3 major climbs. They start with the Col de Glandon, they go on to the Col de la Madeleine, and then they finish here at Courchevel. It's a climb never used before in the Tour de France, and I think it's as hard as the climb of Alpe d'Huez itself.
What are the chances now of Marco Pantani winning again today? Well, here's Paul Sherwin now to assess the appeal and the climbing ability of the pocket dynamo from Italy.
Most of Marco Pantani's appeal actually comes from his look. His shaved head, his large ears and an earring have earned him several nicknames over the last few years. Names like Elefantino and more recently the Pirate. But yesterday when he came to the Alpe d'Huez, he had a mission. As the climb started, he threw away his hat and he was ready for the show. And after a series of attacks, he ended up alone in the lead with just his supporters chasing him. His advantage comes from the fact that he weighs in at just 56 kilos, making him at least 10 kilos lighter than most other riders. Once he's on the climb, his power-to-weight ratio approaches that which the stronger men have on the flat. When you combine this to his amazing courage and ability to accelerate again and again, his attacks become almost overwhelming. However, like most of these light riders, they only have the strength to do this on one climb. To win today, Pantani must conserve his energy over the first two climbs of the day, saving it for one final assault to Courchevel.
Well, this is the situation. Virenque on the King of the Mountains has 299 points ahead of his teammate Brochard, and Ulrich quite a long way behind already. So I think it's pretty safe to say that barring accidents, Virenque will run out that record winner of the King of the Mountains 4 times straight. Now the Mountains, Paul, are with us again, and again Festina are in charge.
Well, the first climb of the day, the Col de Glandon, and there are 6 riders from Festina in this group, so they've obviously gone out on a mission today. They want to try and worry the yellow jersey of Jan Ullrich.
Well, here's the descent, and here's Jan Ullrich. Now, we've been a little bit worried about the way Jan Ullrich has been going down hills. Now, he had some food in his mouth there, but he is very questionable on the way down the mountains.
Well, he's taken terrible lines around those corners there, and if he's not careful, he's going to miss the back wheel of Richard Virenque. And in fact, Virenque has opened up a gap on the descent, and he has 2 teammates with him. And now's the time that, in fact, Jan Ullrich has decided not to chase them down. He's going to wait for his teammates behind.
And this is the train coming up. It's a small group here, and they've picked up Jan Ullrich. He's got some strength in that group, but he's allowed a gap of around a minute now to open. And that's causing Bjarne Riis to have to do some work in-house, as it were.
Well, now there's a time when Bjarne Riis really has to be the teammate to his own man, Jan Ullrich. But here on the climb of the Col de la Madeleine, it's Richard Virenque who's blown away all of his teammates, and I think he's decided now that he wants to go it alone.
Well, there's the Col. They've done 86 kilometres, but this is a 21-kilometre climb at an average gradient of 7.6%. And I should also tell you that at the start this morning, one man missing at the signing in was Luc Leblanc from the Polti team. He's been trying to retire for a couple of days, but the team has made him continue. But today he didn't come out.
Well, I think he's had a hard season, you know. He's always been dogged by injuries. That crash in the Tour of Italy when he hit the wall, and then in the early part of this year's Tour de France he went down a couple of times too, and I think it all got just too much for him.
Right, on to the Madeleine now. A very, very long climb. It's an all-category climb, so it rates amongst the best in the Tour. But even so, Paul, well, you should know it. You packed in the Tour de France on this climb. You know how difficult it is.
I actually abandoned at the bottom of the Col de la Madeleine. It's a very difficult climb at the bottom part. Climbs up for 21 kilometres. Unfortunately for Richard Virenque, there's just 1 kilometre remaining. And then a very tough descent indeed. But I think the hardest part about today's stage is the fact that there are 3 major climbs and the stage is only 148 kilometres long. You're either going uphill or down dale.
Just listen to the noise of the crowd here. Here's Ullrich coming up the climb with Riis. They're running at around about 20 seconds behind at the 1 kilometre point. Fernando Escartin is here as well. And so he's actually climbing nicely into the overall picture now. He just seems to follow wheels, but he's never far away from the action.
Well, this was remarkable. Richard Virenque always does something very special in the mountains. I'm not quite sure that his tactics are the right ones today, because from the top of this climb, he still has almost 70 kilometres to go to the finish, and it's a very long descent down into the valley before you have to climb up again to Courchevel.
Well, having won the Glandon, now he's won the Col de la Madeleine. He knows now he's going to be the King of the Mountains by the end of his little journey through the Alps here. He's riding extremely well. I'm not so sure it was a wise move to go it alone for Richard Virenque, because he is really taking on an awful lot. But even so, he is forcing yet again Ullrich to go on the defensive. And it's good to see them not giving him an easy ride at all.
Most certainly, the Festina riders came out this morning with an idea that they would try and worry him. This is Laurent Dufaux, one of the early riders, putting the pressure on. But one man who is missing from all of this action is yesterday's winner, Marco Pantani.
And, well, as you said, he's a man that chose his climb. He's a powerhouse on a single climb, but over a series of climbs, he hasn't taken part in the action. He climbed up to third place overall, though, and I'm sure that's where he would love to finish in Paris. Dropping back to the second group there only briefly, as we now see the descent here of the Col de la Madeleine. Very dangerous, but very fast descent. And one thing Richard Virenque can do almost as well as he can climb, he can go down quickly.
Well, I never would have expected to see Jan Ullrich put under pressure on the descent, but on the final climb he made a brilliant move by working along with his teammate, and he finally pulled back Richard Virenque. So with 10 kilometres remaining on the climb up to Courchevel, there are two leaders, Richard Virenque and the yellow jersey of Jan Ullrich.
Well, when we drove up here early in the day, Paul Sherwin did say that he thought this climb was desperately hard. It started around 14 kilometres from the end of the day and continues literally to the finishing line, because we are behind a small airport, which is for light aeroplanes which fly to the top of Courchevel in the winter, many of them carrying some high-powered people like the royal family of Britain, because this is one of their favourite ski resorts.
Well, Bjarne Riis once again on the slopes of these mountains, just trying to survive, I think, through the Tour de France this year. At the front there, though, Jan Ullrich is doing a brilliant job. He's controlled all the attacks of Richard Virenque. I think Virenque now certainly paying for that long breakaway of his, and it's going to be very difficult for him to survive another attack from Jan Ullrich. But I think, Phil, the worst thing about this climb is once you get into the town here, you think, oh, it's all over, I've done it, I've got to the summit, because you've read the book and the book says you finish in Courchevel. But there's another 4 kilometres after the mountain top here up to the summit.
Yes, it does indeed. It twists right around behind the town as they climb steadily up. But I think today Jan Ullrich will need to go and shake hands with Bjarne Riis, because Riis brought him back into this race after the descent of the Col de Glandon. He got him back up to the leaders before the climb of the Col de la Madeleine. Now Riis seems capable of looking after himself. There's Peter Luttenberger just latching on. There's Marco Pantani. He's got himself a little bit more back into the picture now. Casagrande in the red cap as well. But they're all losing time to Ullrich and Virenque. And there is Alano too, so he's having a little bit better of a time in the Alps compared with those of the Pyrenees.
I think the repetitive nature of all these very big climbs really has been too hard for the pure climbers of the Tour de France. The two men at the front, they look quite comfortable, and once again Escartine now setting the pace, trying to pull himself back into the race, because he in fact is looking to finish first Spaniard in the Tour, but he's not making any inroads into the lead of these two men.
Well, as they continue to climb, Pantani's group is timed at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Here it is, and Luttenberger is now in trouble. He was favoured for a top 5 finish at this year's Tour, but he has never really been in the frame.
That's a horrible little place on the road there. They actually turn through the town, which is a shortcut. It's actually not quite as long, but it's horrendously steep.
Now we're outside the town with the two leaders. Very soon we should catch a glimpse of the little airstrip lying up by the summit of the climb. Ullrich will feel very content with the way the race is going now. He's got himself nicely ensconced behind Richard Virenque. Virenque doing a lot of the work, and happy to do so, I think, now, because he's consolidating his second place in the Tour.
Well, it's remarkable how this Tour de France is turning round and round about, because yesterday it was the day for Marco Pantani and Virenque was dropped in the climbs. Now it's the other way round, but as always in the climbs, Bjarne Riis is suffering. The victory certainly must go down to these two men, unless Fernando Escartine can do something very special. 5 kilometres remaining for the group with Marco Pantani.
Bjarne Riis also finding the pace a little bit too hot now, as Escartine has decided it's time to come out of the shadow of the wheels and do some racing for himself. He's now gone clear of everybody else. Escartine will now be the third man on the road, behind these two who simply can't go any quicker, and they seem to be matched pedal for pedal.
Well, Escartine really has been a great rider. He won the Tour of Catalonia just before the Tour de France here, riding very well indeed. He's got the form to come to the Tour de France, and he's looking for what for him would be a podium position, a place in the top 3. He's trying to get into contention, but you know, it's so difficult over these last couple of kilometres. You see how the road just zigzags up the mountain, and there's the airstrip that you were talking about, and the finish is just on the other side. In fact, the top side of the airstrip.
Right round the hilly side of it, I'm afraid. But now Richard Virenque continues to set the pace. Oh dear me, well that's how you're not supposed to support the riders in the Tour de France. As we come up towards what will be the last kilometre pretty soon, there's the runway off to our right. They land the planes uphill, so they stop pretty suddenly because there isn't much of a runway up here.
Richard Virenque still climbing with energy, still climbing with a lot of emotion. forcing himself to set the pace at the front, and always Ulrich looking comfortable, sitting down in the saddle, climbing with the power that's coming from the lower part of his back and his thighs. He really is a powerful man. I think he's managed to convert all of this power to weight ratio into a climbing ability, but the fans, they're certainly going wild.
They found the way up this mountain because this road was closed fairly early on today. There's no other way to get to this point. And I should imagine tonight it's going to be blocked up as all the people and the race tour tries to get down. Ready for tomorrow. It's a long, steady climb now. Richard Virenque has been superb in this tour. He must be ruining the day that Ulrich came to form like this, because otherwise I think the French would have been cheering a French winner of the Tour de France. Into the tunnel. We have to go over the top. There's the runway over the top of the tunnel. And very shortly the two leaders back into our view.
Well, quite remarkable to see these two riders fighting it out, and I wonder who's going to come out of the tunnel first. Maybe they'll use this as an opportunity to launch a sly attack, but no. The two of them are still together, and still as before, Richard Virenque is on the front, and he must be wondering how he's going to outsprint Jan Ullrich when it comes to the summit, because Ullrich has been content over these last few kilometres just to sit there in the slipstream of the Frenchman, letting the Frenchman in the polka dot jersey set all of the pace.
He's got his margin of 6 minutes plus, so he knows as long as he stays alongside Richard Virenque, he has no problems whatsoever. 23 years of age, Jan Ullrich, almost the identical age of Jacques Anquetil, in whose city this Tour de France started, and Jacques was 23 when he won his first Tour de France as well. What a remarkable coincidence.
Well, after the ride that Virenque has done today, going away with all of his team on the first climb of the day, the Col de Glandon, and then attacking alone on the Col de la Madeleine, I think the French are certainly going to rise to who they will find as their new hero.
Now, Richard Virenque just checking here, getting a little bit twitchy. He's made the pace all the way up, and I'm wondering whether, in fact, Jan Ullrich will pay him a sort of salute here and allow him to win this stage, or whether he'll try to take it off him in the sprint.
Well, I think Ullrich is a winner. He wants to win the stage here. He'll be looking for any mistakes by Richard Virenque, and I'm sure he will try and come around him if he can.
Well, Richard has never won a stage of the Tour de France in the Alps, and this is his moment if he can hang on, but he's made all of the running. There'd be no reason for Jan Ullrich to come and do any of the pacemaking. He's the man who has got to be placed under attack. He doesn't need to attack anymore. And now the sprint has started. Little rise towards the line here. The legs of Virenque, the first to appear. He still stares Jan Ullrich in the eye. No contest. Ullrich, I think, has played the honest soldier there. He's allowed Virenque his win in the Alps. The first time he's ever done that. Here comes Escartine. So he is finishing in third place, less than a minute behind. As we look further down the line now, we've got Dufault and Bjarne Riis here. But they again have conceded a first slice of time. Dufault coming away for fourth. He'll be very happy with that because he knows Virenque is up there. He won't know yet he's won, but he will in a few seconds. And Riis fifth, a minute and 24 back. And so the rest of the riders coming in as they head up towards the line. You know, this has been a strange race today. Marco Pantani is going to finish in sixth place, and he will be over 3 minutes back. And so he might retain third overall, or he might in fact now concede that to Bjarne Riis. Number one, now it either means number one for France, number one in the Alps, or number one this tour for Richard Virenque. But there's the result. Ullrich second, Escartine, Dufault, Riis, and Marco Pantani gets the sixth place. Now, the overall situation is that Riis does come up into third place and Pantani drops to fourth as we stay in the Alps now and continue to Morzine. So far, they haven't been able to crack the German phenomenon Jan Ullrich. After 2 days tracing the stunning mountain roads of the Alps, which have rarely looked better, Ullrich has taken everything thrown at him. Yesterday, was there a slight chink in his shining armour? Perhaps. He couldn't descend with the best. Well, today the vicious climb of the Col de Jouplin is followed by 12 kilometres of downhill. It's a technical drop to the finish, calling for great skill. Ullrich must stay alert now. Overall, the battle is still intense between Bjarne Riis and Marco Pantani in the race for third, while Abraham Olano and Fernando Escartine are also engaged in a battle for fifth. So Jan Ullrich is still looking good to become the first German rider ever to win the Tour de France. But of the tens of thousands of spectators who stand by the roadside every day, well, not surprisingly, their pin-up boy is French.
Richard Virenque. Virenque. Oui, Virenque. Virenque.
Oh, Richard Virenque.
Richard Virenque. c'est Richard Virenque aussi.
Virenque.
Allez, Virenque!
Allez, Virenque! Allez, Virenque! Virenque, c'est le meilleur, c'est super! Il va gagner!
Well, Virenque or Virenque, even the French don't know how to say his name, but either way, he climbs pretty well. And he is very, very popular indeed this year, and this, Paul, is an absolute killer of a stage.
A very tough stage indeed, but one which is normal for the Alps because it goes over some magnificent climbs. And Laurent Jalabert, he's trying to be the first to go over most of them. The first col, the Col de Tamier, is followed very soon by the Col de Forclaz, then the Col de Croix-Frie, finally the Col de la Colombière before the riders drop down into Cluse, and that horrendous climb, the final one of the day, the Jouplan.
And this is the Col de la Forclaz right now, and Laurent Jalabert, he got clear on the ascent of the Col de Tamier, which came at 62 kilometres. Virenque was second over the top there. He led over the group 2 minutes and 5 seconds back. Jalabert continued over the Col de la Forclaz, and on the Col de Croix-Frie, he is still ahead and going very, very well. It must be a suicide mission, Paul. Virenque leads this group over now, 1 minute and 31 back.
Well, it's a strange move to see the man who's the #1 cyclist in the world going out on a long breakaway. I think that just the fact that he's done this is the fact that he just cannot win a stage. He's being pulled up now by the Festina squad, and once again Richard Virenque trying to take over the lead on the Col de la Colombière. But look who's there, Bobby Julich.
And Julich has got second place there. He's come right to the fore on that climb. Udo Boltz went over in third place. We're looking now towards Morzine and the climb of the Col de Jouplan, and this is a real tough climb.
Well, this is the top of the Côte de Châtillon, a little climb just before the Jouplan, and in fact this is Andrea Perron and Kevin Livingston, so the Americans having a very good finish to the Tour.
And what happened was Perron attacked, Livingstone went with him, 31 seconds at advantage there over Richard Virenque and Laurent Brochard. The clouds are coming down. They're in fact on top of Morzine and Voriaz there, which is high above the actual finish today. We are now on the start of the Jouplan, and again, Paul, the little man who stayed hidden all day, has gone for this like a rabbit.
Well, that's amazing. Yesterday he got blown out in the big mountains. I thought he was over. He'd probably recuperating from the accidents that he'd had. He'd come back in the Tour of Italy. He'd crashed again. He rode superbly on the Alpe d'Huez, and I thought maybe that was it. But Pantani, well, he's certainly back.
Well, he's making his move. He's got to make it early on because it's a long climb, but as we said earlier, you've got this long 12-kilometre descent down to Morzine to the finish, and Pantani can descend pretty quickly, but he'll want any time gaps on the way up, and he's found his acceleration here. Now, it's been a rough ride all day for these riders. Pantani has done absolutely nothing but follow the wheels, and now he's making his attack.
But you could almost regard this stage here as a mountaintop finish because they've changed the descent off the Jouplan here. The finish used to be 20 kilometres away from the summit, and today it's merely 12.
And that's down to the different way they approach Morzine now as they bring them in round the back instead of right round on a big loop. Anyway, back to the chasers now. Bjarne Riis, who's in charge of his little protege there, Jan Ullrich, and doing all the pacemaking here while Ullrich just follows. The concentration here on Pantani, who's tasted victory now at Alpe d'Huez and wants to repeat it here at Morzine. He usually wins 2 stages when he does get a shot at them, Paul.
Well, if he's come back to the old Marco Pantani that he was a few years ago, this year he's only had 1 victory, Phil, and that was just a couple of days ago on the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez. But this climb is a very deceptive climb indeed. The Tour hasn't been here for several years. It's very steep, and riders using a gear around about a 39-tooth sprocket on the front and something like a 25-tooth sprocket at the back, so you get an idea of just how steep it is.
Well, they are very, very low gears indeed for top professional bike riders, but this is a tough climb. I remember seeing it when it was first climbed a few years back now into the 70s, and it really did cause carnage amongst the peloton.
Very difficult descent as well, although a very fast one. So if Pantani can build up a good enough lead, he stands a great chance of pulling himself back into the lead.
When he did accelerate right at the base of the climb, there was little or no resistance from the group. Here's the remnants of the group now. Riis leading, Ullrich, Virenque never far away, Escartine is there, and the rider I think tacked on the back, I think it's Bobby Julich, but it is Bobby Julich, isn't it?
It's Bobby Julich there in the red crash helmet, so he's doing a great ride. The Americans certainly have improved over the last couple of days. They're getting stronger, I think, as the Tour goes on. There's the devil. He's going to have a hard time if he doesn't keep to the road, because one of these days I think he's going to trip over his tail.
Trip over his tail, yes, let's hope not. There's the saddle of Marco Pantani, the yellow saddle, but it doesn't match the jersey yet. But he'll take a little bit more time out of Jan Ullrich, who is still this race very much under control. He's got Bjarne Riis, no less, keeping the pace and limiting the gains of Pantani on the climb. But now it looks as though Riis has fallen to the back of this group. That might be the first signs he's now taking the pressure, as in fact Virenque is the man applying the tourniquet.
Well, he's thinking about another stage victory. He knows the man in front, Marco Pantani, is a very good climber, and if anybody is going to catch him, only Richard Virenque can do that. Again, a little bit of picture breakup. That's because of the microwave link-up from the motorbike to the helicopters here, but Bjarne Riis are once again under pressure.
Well, this has been a great tour too for Richard Virenque. He's always been in the thick of the action. Bjarne Riis, well, he suffered virtually from day one after he finished behind in that first crash. He always seems to have been catching up rather than leading the tour. And now we're going back to the man who's leading the day. There's the banners for Cedric Vasseur. Well, that's what happens when you get the maillot jaune at any stage of the Tour de France. There are those people who are then not ashamed to put your name up front.
Cedric Vasseur a long way down in the overall standings. I'm pretty sure when we get to the top of this climb, there'll be a few Marco Pantani banners, but you can see Pantani now getting out of the saddle, accelerating when he can. He realises that if he's going to take this stage victory, and I think in the back of his mind what he's also thinking about is moving himself up back into third place in the overall standings, because he did use that yesterday to Bjarne Riis. But what he really wants to do, I think, is get onto the podium but also get another stage victory along the way.
Well, just 1 kilometre of the 11.5 kilometres to the summit for the chasers. A lot near the top will be Marco Pantani. The strange thing about this climb is, Paul, is where the banner isn't really the top of the climb.
Well, that's a bit of a shame. You do get to the top there, you see the King of the Mountains banner, you drop down for about 500 or 600 metres, and all of a sudden there's a nasty little kick just on the other side as one of the Vikings running alongside Bjarne Riis, hopefully trying to give him a little bit of that Nordic spirit.
Third group on the road, as this is the third camera bike. This is the second camera bike, following second and third on the Tour de France today. And again, all of the work being left to Richard Virenque by Jan Ullrich. It's a great feeling to think that it's not your job to set the pace when you are leading the Tour de France. You've only got to defend your position.
Well, they're going over around about 35, 39 seconds in arrears. But it's amazing to look at the face of Jan Ullrich. No emotion at all. He just sits there. He's got a job in hand, and he just controls Richard Virenque.
Now it looks as though they're going to be just around about a minute down there as they come up towards the line. Slightly less as Virenque gets more points. Second over the King of the Mountains to him. He's done enough today, in fact, to be confirmed as the winner of that competition. So as far as that competition is concerned, he's only got a ride to Paris now. He's Escartine. He goes over in fourth place. Riis is right with him as they now zip up for the chilly drop down towards the finish.
But what a position. Look at this. Marco Pantani right over the back of his saddle there. Because he doesn't have so much weight, he has to make himself as aerodynamic as possible to try and keep his speed very high. And once again, in second position there, Richard Virenque chasing. And Jan Ullrich there just backing off a little bit, I think trying to imitate the style and the lines that the Frenchman is taking around the corners.
Very narrow descent this, and you've got to stay vigilant. It's tricky. There's some very sharp bends here. Pantani is absolutely flying down. See how steep it goes down now. It is a very steep climb. There's 5 kilometres to go. That's 3 miles to the finish. And Pantani is actually still pulling time out of the others on the way down.
I'm not surprised the way he's going round with these corners. You see, not using the biggest gear. The interesting thing about a descent there, as once again Ullrich is off the back of the pace that Richard Virenque is setting. Virenque, in fact, not only is he attacking Ullrich on the climbs, but he's now decided to attack him on his weak spot, which is on the descents.
But you know, Jan Ullrich is nobody will ever say he's had an easy ride in this year's Tour de France, thanks to Virenque and some others, because they've always put him under pressure. They've tested him at every opportunity. We keep forgetting he is only 23.5 years of age, and he's still a lot to learn. He's only ridden the Tour de France twice, and he's finished second so far, and it looks like he's on course for his first victory now.
I tend to worry about the choice of his equipment as well. He's using these very light carbon fibre wheels, which may well be that they don't have the same rigidity as the steel wheels and spokes that are being used by Richard Virenque. So when he does go into those corners, maybe his bike's just a little bit spongy, causing him not to quite have the kind of morale he should have and the confidence going into these descents.
Well, you're right in that respect. He certainly doesn't have the same confidence as Virenque. I think that was the 2 kilometre to go banner. We've just shot under here. All the cheers for Marco Pantani, who continues to fly off the Juplin and head down into Morzine. Another town here in the Alps, absolutely packed with people. They've been queuing to get into the town for hours, and I never cease to be amazed how the police clear these roads like this with just about an hour and a half or so to go to the arrival of the Tour.
I'm not sure if it's by perfect planning or whether it's just Gallic luck when it comes down to getting all the cars off at the last possible moment. But here still the chasers Richard Virenque and Jan Ullrich. And Ullrich really does seem to be pushing himself just a little bit to try and stay on the wheel of Richard Virenque. But Virenque, I think, is going to fight this man all the way to Paris.
Well, here is Morzine now, as we're in the 1 kilometre to go. A huge crowd waiting to welcome Marco Pantani, who's going to get his second big stage win of this Tour. And you know, he might reclaim back that 3rd place overall, which was taken off him the other day by Bjarne Riis.
Well, I'm sure that's in the back of his mind, but at the moment all he's thinking about is concentrating on getting to the finish, down in an aerodynamic position, as aerodynamic as a little climber can get, I suppose. As he comes into the town, that's the town square, normally devoid of people. Now the final little kick up to the finish line, and Pantani's going to make it number 2.
And this is a new finish for the Tour here in Morzine, and they've done well to find one so good in this town, which is full of narrow back streets and is usually very, very busy. But now they welcome again an Italian conqueror of the Alps. And the Alps too, by the way, yes, they run through Italy too. As he comes up now, Marco Pantani is going to take his 2nd stage win. He's going to gain a few more seconds, and it may be minutes over Jan Ullrich. We've got no time check at the moment, as Pantani prepares for the victory salute yet again. The little man won 2 stages last time he rode the Tour de France, and it looks like he's going to match it now with 2 stage wins, are both coming here in the Alps rather. His last victories were in the Pyrenees. A win for Marco Pantani, 5 hours and 57 minutes today. Another long day in the annals of the riders of the Tour de France. Here's the race for 2nd place, Paul, and Virenque is still dangling in front of Ullrich.
Well, he won't give up. He goes into all of these corners flat out, just hoping he can put a little bit of pressure on the yellow jersey. They're inside the town now. They're looking for the town square. But every time Jan Ullrich manages to bring himself back into the slipstream of the Frenchman. But I think he's going to pay for those efforts over the next few days, because since the start of this Tour de France, he's either been riding at the front or he's been chasing down Richard Virenque.
Well, it's a familiar scene. This is like a reenactment of the finish at Courchevel, and still leaving Virenque looking at the man behind and hoping he's not going to put in a sprint to take the 2nd place off him. And I don't think he is. He's come right onto the shoulder, though, of Richard Virenque. But as Virenque just winds it up a little bit, there's no sign of Jan Ullrich really digging for those pedals. So 2nd place, another formality at the end of the stage for Richard Virenque. He's the man that's done all the work, and I think this is the way Ullrich says, I'm happy with 3rd, you've got nothing on me, you've gained no time, and I'll stay right here. He allows the Frenchman his moment in front of his home crowd. Immensely popular this year. Richard Virenque gets 2nd on the stage, Ullrich takes 3rd. The gap, 1 minute and 17 seconds chipped off. Here's Bobby Julich.
Well, a great ride by him to stay with these leaders of the Tour de France. Francesco Casagrande on his shoulder, coming around the outside, looks like Beat Zeberg. Well, Bobby's not going to get 4th, but he's put in a great ride this afternoon. Phil, I think that's Zeberg getting 4th place, Casagrande 5th, and Bobby, he's going to be happy with 6th.
And there, coming over the line, is Bjarne Riis, just about 2 minutes and 5 seconds down for him. Well, Hannibal crossed the Alps with the elephants, and in fact it was an elephant who won today. Elephantino. Marco Pantani was first home at Morzine. So he won the stage, but he didn't win the yellow jersey, but he won't be too worried about that. He did take more time out of Jan Ullrich, and not many people are doing that. Pantani beats Richard Virenque of France, so Italy gets a 1-0 victory over France there. Jan Ullrich 3rd, Zeberg finishing 4th. Overall, Jan Ullrich maintains that big lead of 6 minutes and 22 seconds. He's aiming at the winning margin now, by the way, of Pedro Delgado, who won by 7 minutes and 13 seconds back in 1988. Now, congratulations to Richard Virenque. He is the new King of the Mountains, 1997, for the 4th year in succession. Paul Sherwin is with him.
Mais quand même, vous avez rentré dans l'histoire du Tour parce que c'est presque gagné maintenant, la 4e victoire de suite dans le Grand Prix de la Montagne.
Oui. Avec les points que j'ai marqués aujourd'hui, le maillot à poids, il est encore pour moi pour la 4e fois de suite.
Et nous, on a fait un petit concours dans le village avant de l'arrivée. Toute la France est derrière un seul coureur, Richard Virenque.
Oui, je sais, je suis au courant et je les entends tous les jours sur la route. Virenque, Virenque.
It must be a marvellous feeling. Well, 143 survivors are saying goodbye to Morzine and France. We're now heading into Fribourg and Switzerland. It's time to move on yet again. Just one more inside, Paul. Okay. You know, the Tour de France is the greatest mobile sporting show in the world. Every day it transports 3,500 people to their next destination. And of course, we're no exception. Today we're leaving Morzine, we're heading off into Switzerland. But we're leaving behind us here 3 marvellous days in the Alps. 3 days which have left us with great sporting memories and great scenery. And you have to admit what a beautiful country France is and what a great bicycle race the Tour de France is. Here we are now, we're on stage 16. It's 181 kilometres this stage. And again, we've got riders going out on the attack looking for a victory.
Well, that was Pierre Bon and Frank Vandenbroek trying to go clear and be the first riders to get into Switzerland, because this is the Pas de Morzine. Looking very comfortable, though, in his polka dot jersey, Richard Virenque. He knows he's got the King of the Mountains competition sewn up, but I think in the back of his mind he must be thinking about this final climb of the Tour de France, the Col de la Croix, because 1 or 2 riders, I think, don't expect it to be quite as hard as it's going to be.
And this is Eric Zabel. He's come through the mountains very well indeed and can now really dream of winning his second green jersey, the Maillot Vert, when we get down to the Champs-Élysées, which isn't too far away now as we start the final week of the Tour de France. It is an absolutely idyllic day today. This link road taking us away from Morzine and France into Switzerland, I think, is one of the prettiest roads the race ever uses.
This is the Col de la Croix, and already the rider's starting to put the pressure on, and the pressure coming from Marco Pantani. And I think what he's trying to do, really, Phil, is get rid of Bjarne Riis, because he can feel if he can get a big enough gap over Bjarne Riis going into the final time trial, then the podium and 3rd place in Paris is certainly going to be for him.
Well, Bjarne Riis is confident he can handle Pantani in the penultimate time trial the day before the race finishes, and of course he is a better time trial rider, and so Pantani is using today his last chance. This is the climb of the Col de Croix. A lot of riders have been talking about this climb and saying it is difficult. It comes at 92 kilometres and Pantani is disturbing everybody again.
Well, in the early part of the stage, in fact, Bjarne Riis was put in difficulty. He was in the second part of the main field and had to fight his way back just after the Pas de Morzine. And here, you know, Phil, I actually can't see him in this group at the moment, and it's looking very difficult. As we look back, I can see a pink jersey, but that is Udo Bolt. And making a head count there, I think Bjarne Riis is missing.
I think he's in big trouble here. Pantani knows it. He's had a look over his shoulder to see what's going on. He's got the 2 boys who usually stay together, Virenque and Ulrich. They're riding quite solidly. And tacked on the back is Udo Bolts. Escartine is here as well. Huge crowd on this climb. It is a long, difficult climb, this. It's a hard way to say goodbye to the Alps, because although we're in Switzerland, we're still in the same mountain chain, and this is only a first category climb. But just look at the people here.
Well, it's interesting to see one man in the lead group here. In fact, it's Frank Vandenbroek. He was in that early breakaway of the Pas de Morzine, and he survived the day. And if he can just get over the top of this climb, well, he's in with a great chance of stage victory. But Bjarne Riis, wearing number 1, well, I don't think he's going to remember this Tour de France with a lot of good emotions.
He takes the bottle there, and a little bit of an illegal push off the hand as well, but the judges might turn a blind eye to that if they were present. But it's no doubt he is in difficulty on this climb. He's not enjoying the climb at all. There are rumours beginning to circulate amongst the riders that he is quite ill, but even so, he's still in the Tour.
Well, this is the leading group of 7 riders who formed on the slopes of this climb. Leading them over, in fact, is the Spanish rider Gonzalez.
Just behind there, I think it was Stefan Erlo and Tocznik. They were the 3 boys over them. Tocznik is the champion of Austria. He's the watchdog today for the Telecom team. And there's a fine piece of artistry out on the highway. Remember, we're on the Swiss side now, and they still love the Tour de France. Now these riders are climbing the col and they're running it just on 2 minutes behind that leading breakaway, which was going clear on the climb of the Pas de Morzine, and he's still clear. But Rees now is in terrible trouble because he's almost 4 minutes behind the leaders on the climb. Look at the state of Bjarne Riis here.
Well, I think his concentration has gone. He felt, in fact, that the Tour de France was over once he got to Morzine, and I don't think he thought about this climb of the Col de la Croix being anything but just a simple formality.
Now further down the rank, Virenque and Pantani are going over towards the summit anyway, just on 2 minutes behind the breakaway. But of course they're not too concerned by the riders in that breakaway. They won't affect the overall situation at all. There's the clock counting down. That was Gonzalez who went over first. 1:46 is the official gap.
But they have put, in fact, the yellow jersey into a little bit of difficulty over the final kilometre here. He's got Udo Bolt to help him, but he's going to have to do something special on the downhill, and we know over the last few days that's certainly not been the area where he's been very good.
Well, he's looking for about 15 to 20 seconds as they make their way down. Pantani and Virenque are superb descenders in the style of the old and great Greg LeMond. When he won his Tours de France, he was a good descender as well.
Well, it takes a lot of nerve and a lot of courage and also a lot of concentration to go down these descents as quickly as that. But you can see a little bit of panic there for the yellow jersey, trying to move forward in the line. He realises he has to do something to try and pull the Tour de France back together, because at the moment, Phil, apart from Toshnik, who is in the front, and Udo Bolts, who's alongside him, there are no Telecom riders anywhere near to help him out.
So the chasers are regrouping. They've got the leaders to catch. And as we say goodbye to the Alps, let's join Gary Imlach to remind us what we've left behind.
You know, while the riders were pounding out the kilometres towards Alpe d'Huez the other day, we were engaged in an endurance test of our own, a day in the thick of the crowd waiting for them on the mountain. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Alpstock. No longer just a stage on the Tour, Alpe d'Huez has become an event on the international itinerants calendar, like running the bulls at Pamplona or the Munich Beer Fest, and it combines elements of both. This year the multinational crowd was swelled by the Danes. Bjarne Riis didn't play the Alpe on his 1996 European Tour, so this was their first chance to catch it live.
Riis is the best! The atmosphere is incredible. Music, dancing, fantastic.
Crazy, totally crazy. I haven't seen anything. We was in Andorra, it was not a bit like this. This is totally insanity.
The place seems to have been taken over by Danes.
Millions
and mad Italians as well.
Yeah. I think if you're a bird watcher, you should get yourself across to Denmark just now, because all the houses are empty because they're all down here. There's thousands of them.
At least some of the insanity in evidence was probably down to the day's unofficial anthem, a song for Europe, if stupidity ever becomes the single currency. For the crowd, it was an endlessly versatile number, equally suitable for encouraging passing cyclists, greeting the publicity caravan, or marking the departure of one of their mates in an ambulance.
There's that song when I get a nightmare. Everybody just seems to enjoy themselves. Just get on with it. Good fun.
Inside the beer tent, a few stone-faced purists were actually watching the cycling, while outside it was becoming clear that the crowd had peaked too soon, and by the time the leaders arrived, they had nothing left to give. The Indian chief did stay with Pantani briefly, but after offering half-hearted encouragement to the stragglers, the rest of the crowd decamped to the tent for the finish. Race over, there was one last airing for the song that's probably #1 in Denmark, Luxembourg and San Marino as we speak. Then began the mass exodus, with promises to meet in Munich or Pamplona, or maybe next year on the Alpe.
Well, that's certainly the place to be if you want to feel the full atmosphere of a visit of the Tour de France. Well, the race has regrouped at the front now, but Bjarne Riis is not with them. He is wallowing some 4 minutes behind, Paul.
Well, that's quite remarkable. I don't think he would have expected that on a nice little road into Switzerland, because, you know, he did feel that he was going to get third place in the Tour de France when the final time trial was around Disneyland, but I don't think he would have expected to have lost as much time as he has done today.
He didn't count on a rather active Marco Pantani, who made the most of that last big climb, the Col de la Croix. So often when the big climbs are at the beginning of the stage, they don't mean too much. But this particular day, it was the last serious climb for Pantani to go to work on. Now he's in the front group of some 23 riders, and he's distanced Riis, and there he is.
He doesn't look very happy at all. He's not got any mates in this group with him to try and pull it all back together. And I really do think that he lost concentration. He felt confident. We're going up to Paris will be an easy job, but he's going to lose an awful lot of time before the finish here in Fribourg.
Well, there is the front group, and all the men that matter are here. All the regular leaders of the Tour de France at least have found their way up into this group. And Pantani, the troublemaker, is still using his team to keep the pressure on. He now wants big time over Bjarne Riis.
But Abraham Alano's team has come to mix it at the front as well, because he's thinking that he too can close a little bit of a gap on the podium, and he may well be able to do something special and dethrone the little climber Marco Pantani in that final time trial. So for the first time, we're really seeing a very strong and dedicated Banesto team.
So two teams driving with just cause now at 5 kilometers to go. Banesto and Mercatoni Uno. There's Jimenez, the champion of Spain, passing through. And these are the riders now of Banesto who are really driving this race on, working for Alano instead of, in years gone by, Miguel Indurain.
Well, this is the final little climb just coming into Freiburg. Roberto Conti on the front here, and I would think if any man felt confident, now would be a great place to launch an attack, because this climb then just drops straight down into the finish, and at 3 kilometers to go, and it's an ideal launch pad.
There's a little bit of a nasty right-hand turn when we go under the railway station, with about 1 kilometre to the finish in Fribourg. It's another town which hasn't seen the Tour de France. It's got a lovely wide finishing sprint once you have got round that right-hand bend. And so a rider who's prepared to take a little risk could steal the show here. And having said that, now it looks as though we've got one rider having a dig. Is this Kepi Gonzalez?
Well, it's either Kepi Gonzalez or Fernando Escartin. They both look very similar, but it's definitely the Kelme rider who's coming into the tunnel with about 1 kilometre left to go.
There's the swing, and now as he lines up, I think it is Kepi Gonzalez, but the race is pouncing on him here. Dufault gets in first, and Festina. They've got themselves back under control once again. There are no real sprinters in this breakaway, none of the sprinting power of Eric Zabel, so there will be a lot of riders here who will feel they can take this stage out.
A very strange finish it should be too. The man a little bit earlier at the back there, Frank Vandenbroek, he should have a good chance, but he's been in the breakaway for an awful long time. But I think, you know, Phil, Richard Virenque feels his chances are up today.
Well, he's using all of his Festina team. There are plenty of them in this group. They really have been a great team in this year's race. Virenque's got second place. I've just seen Pantani taking a dive, and I think Casagrande saw it as well, the rider in the red. And now, as they start sprinting for the line here, they're now trying to make the best of it. Udo Bolt is also digging deep on the left of our picture. Pantani off to the left as well. This is going to be a very tight sprint indeed, but this is Christophe Mengin who's coming up, and he's going to take it. So he gets the big win for the new French team, La Française des Jeux. And they are going to be delighted with him for that. In fact, Stefan Erlo also punching the sky as well. This is how Mengin has done it. Richard Virenque was locked right in there, so he proves himself as a sprinter as well, because as he crosses the line, he snatches third place. I think the big loser there was Frank Vandenbroek. That's the second place he's had in this year's Tour de France. The other one coming when Eric Zabel got the better of him in Plumelec. Going back now some 6 minutes here to the next group, and that is the sort of time that Bjarne Riis is losing. He's tucked at the back of this group, and so I think, Paul, he's going to say goodbye to his third place now in the Tour de France, and Pantani will feel very, very happy with the way his day has gone.
Certainly Bjarne Riis not happy at all with his performance out on the course, because, you know, he felt that he was going to come back to this Tour de France and win it, and then he felt confident that third place was within his grasp, but at the end of the day he lost a lot. A big surprise, and I think a happy day for Marc Madiot of the Française des Jeux, because his man Christophe Mengin gave them their first victory. Frank Vandenbroek, great ride by him to get second, but Richard Virenque still in there with third place.
And looking further down that list, Alano also up there. All the big names made it except Bjarne Riis. And the next stage now, stage 17, taking us out of Fribourg to Colmar, which is back in France. And today is going to be a really special day for Jan Ullrich, because just across the borders in Germany, he lives about 20 miles from the finishing line of the stage. A ride of 218 kilometres this, and once again the race under pressure as the breakaways are continuing.
Well, the break started from the very word go this morning. Everybody knew there was a great chance of success. They went out and launched attack after attack until finally this one managed to form at the front. And there you can see a man always good to go in the breakaways, the Aussie Neil Stevens.
So Stevo at the front, and Tocznik is in here as well. But as I said to you earlier, as this breakaway speeds now towards a stage finish in France, everybody from Germany will be looking for one man in yellow, Jan Ullrich, and the reason being because his village is not too far away from the French borders, although Ullrich himself is originally an East German rider, one of the old regime. He's now, of course, a German rider. So the race under the control here of the GAN riders, because they're trying to get a stage win out of this, while we send Gary Imlach not to France, not to Switzerland, but in fact over the borders and into Germany, just to get a sample of life in a certain village where a certain future winner of the Tour de France comes from. Let's join Gary Imlach.
We're across the German border from the race in Jan Ullrich's village, Merdingen. It's only a small place, but last year the locals turned out and gave him a big welcome after he placed second in the Tour. This year, of course, they should have even more to celebrate. And having already done the homecoming parade in '96, this time Jan's home decided to go to him. 3 coachloads, about half the entire village, gathered outside the local cycle club HQ this morning, along with 4 coachloads of press and TV to cover their departure. Guest of honour was his mother, who'd made the journey from the family home in Rostock, along with most of the family.
Das ist my brother.
Ja, Martin.
Der Martin. Der hat sonst eigentlich nicht solche Haarfarbe. Man bemerke mal, hat sich die Haare für den heutigen Tag gefärbt. Ist sonst dunkelhaarig. Ist nicht ganz gelb geworden, aber es sollte gelb werden. Es ist überwältigend hier. Ich komme ja nur gar nicht vom Platz hier weg. Dieser Empfang hier in Merdingen, und schon als wir ankamen hier, wir haben unser Auto auch ein bisschen geschmückt, entsprechend, dass man uns auch als Fans erkennen kann. Da kamen die Kameras und ich meine, bis jetzt hat das hier auch noch kein Ende genommen. Es ist wirklich, ich weiß nicht, wie der Jan das aushält, diesen ganzen Rummel. Echt, also das ist wirklich sehr anstrengend, aber auch sehr schön natürlich.
With a destination board reading Jan, get your foot down, the Ullrich convoy headed for Colmar, Jan's girlfriend Gabby having already gone ahead to avoid the media circus. When her boyfriend's racing, Gabby gets slightly less time with him than the Credit Lyonnais girls. But then Jan didn't get this far this fast by socialising. He started racing at the age of 9, which by the look of him could have been last year, and at 19 he was world champion.
Die Fahrer kennen Sie, die weißen Trikots der Letten, ganz links das weiße Trikot von Jan Ullrich, dem Weltmeister. Meine Damen und Herren, eine Sensation.
Well, I think you probably get the gist of that, and by becoming world champion at the age of 19, Ullrich was emulating the man who currently makes his bikes, a decent rider himself in his day.
Jan Ullrich ist auch mit 19 Jahren Weltmeister geworden, wie Sie damals. Was halten Sie von dem Fahrer Jan Ullrich? Wird das mal ein ganz großer?
Ja, natürlich schwer zu sagen. Die Zeit ist natürlich ganz anders. Aber ich denke, jetzt geht nicht mehr so schnell. Wenn man jung ist, muss man etwas länger warten, um an der Top zu sein.
Ja, mich schweigt es natürlich schon mit so Leuten wie Eddy Merckx oder Dietrich Thur verglichen zu werden. Ich denke mal, mit 19 Weltmeister, das ist schon gut. Aber ich will jetzt versuchen, noch weiter hochzukommen, sprich irgendwo Olympiade mal zu gewinnen oder bei den Profis wirklich mal die Tour irgendwie mitzufahren und gut zu fahren. Und da arbeite ich drauf hin und werden wir sehen, ob ich dann wirklich so gut werde wie die, mit denen ich verglichen werde jetzt.
4 years on from that interview and only 3 after turning pro with Telecom, Ullrich is living up to the comparisons. At 23, he's the same age not only as Merckx when he won the first of his 5 tours, but also Jacques Anquetil when he won the first of his 5. Anyone with a feel for cycling history and a few bob to spare could have done worse than put an accumulator on at Ladbrokes. Whether the long hours of training on the steep roads around Merdingham eventually rank him with the greats remains to be seen, but barring disaster, win number 1 is definitely in the bag. I warn you though, if he underlines that win with a stage win today, the cycle fans of Merdingham may feel compelled to give us a reprise of this.
Oh, Jan Ullrich, du bist der Champion. Ja, das weiß doch jeder, der dich kennt.
Well, I guess it should be a win for Ulrich today, but here he is trapped in the main field at the moment, Paul, and that breakaway which contains Neil Stevens and Laurent Roux, they've got quite a way ahead now.
And thanks to Bobby Julick, because I think the pressure he's put on the breakaway, well, that's going to stop us from hearing that song at the finish.
Well, there's a relief to everything, I suppose. There's the gap, 2 minutes 50 seconds now. This breakaway really getting itself together at around the 70 kilometres point. Neil Stevens was first over the top of the Col de Pierre-Pertuis at 61 kilometres. Garmendia was just behind him. Uchikov, and there he is. He got across, and gradually it swelled until we finished up with 13 men out front.
I think the main field today have laid down their arms because they're not too worried about what's happening at the front of the race. All they're worried about now really is getting to Paris without too many hitches.
Well, that long straight road there doesn't help either. They couldn't catch a sight of the men. They're well clear. Somewhere around about 4.5 minutes at the moment at 10 kilometres to go. So very shortly they can start working out how they're going to attack one another, because really it is such a big group. The Telecom are trying to chase it down, but they're not giving it the wholehearted chase here. They're just doing the job as being on the leading team.
3 minutes and 10 seconds is the gap, so I think with that 10-kilometre flag having gone by, they're not going to see these 13 riders in the lead, and it's going to be a very tactical finish, I'm sure, with riders from the Rabobank team there looking for a stage victory. And Bjarne Riis looking a little bit more composed today in the slipstream of his new leader, Jan Ullrich, and he'll be looking for all of his supporters at the finish line. But I don't think it's going to be another stage victory for Erik Zabel. He might have to wait for just a couple of days.
Well, there are more chances for him as we're getting away from the mountains now. We go into the Vosges for the next couple of days. After that, it's flat road. But again, the attacks are being launched thick and fast.
This is Peter Farazijn of the Lotto squad. He thought he could get clear, and there's been no reaction at all, so he may well have just timed it right. They're all over the road, but in fact, 2 riders starting to come across to the Belgian, so it may well all come back together once more.
Well, this is what was bound to happen. The pressure would go on. They wouldn't take a big bunch of 13 men all the way to the line. Farazijn, who's one of the strong single-day riders in the Lotto squad. The Lotto hasn't had a great tour at all because, remember, they lost Jamaldin Abdou-Japarov very early on when he gave that positive drugs test. And he's gone from the tour, and they've had nothing to really shout about at all. The race is regrouped here. Tochnig is also mixing it in there. And another attack down the outside. Looks like a Festina rider having a go.
That's Neil Stevens there going along, the blonde-haired Australian on the Festina squad. Switched over this year, having spent a number of years on the Once squad, and it looks very much to me, Phil, as if he's actually got the gap.
Well, good for him. Neil Stevens is an opportunist. He's ridden at many breakaways. Remember last year when he overshot a roundabout coming into the finish at Villeneuve-sur-Lot? He was in a breakaway then, Paul. I think it was 6 riders. He blamed the mechanic, but really he went in too fast.
He certainly did. He was trying to chase down Podenzana, who is riding in this Tour de France, riding for the Mercatone Uno squad. But I'm sure going round these corners, Steve-O's thinking all of the time about that accident in that roundabout, because there is a little bit of dampness on the road surface here.
Well, Podenzana actually is in this breakaway as well. And so there's a little bit of irony for you. Steve-O has gone. He's got 2 kilometres to go. It's a long way, but because that group is so big, they might hesitate just enough for Neil to get away. He's never won a stage of the Tour de France. He is really one of the nice guys of the sport. The big riders love him. He's such a workhorse. On Once, he was the #1 super domestique. He's come across now to Richard Virenque and Laurent Dufaux on the Festina. Again, he's done more than his lion's share of the work in this Tour de France. As Kamazin, the champion of Switzerland, tries to go after him, he may have left it too late. And Neil Stevens, well, I tell you what, if he won today, Richard Virenque and the boys would give him a great night out.
Well, that's quite remarkable, you know, for him to go out there, because Festina have had a marvellous Tour de France. I don't think they were expecting any more stage victories, but Steve-O now being chased by his former teammate here from Once, Aitor Garmendia. But time's ticking by, and I think Steve-O's going to get it.
I think even Garmendia knows he's not going to get across now. This is going to be a very emotional moment for Neil Stevens of Australia. He never gives up trying. He was once beaten into Montpellier in a 2-man sprint by Rolf Sorensen. This time, though, the sprint is right behind him, and he has all the time in the world. And that's for the baby, which his wife has just given birth to as well. Neil Stevens is the champion today. He gets the stage win here in Colmar. And there'll be quite a long wait, I think, before the field comes in. And there he is, Neil Stevens crossing the line, all smiles. This is probably going to go down as one of the finest moments in the sport for Neil. He's been a pro a long time, around 14 or 15 years he's been a professional bike rider.
I always knew that I was capable of getting up there and winning a stage. And today when I was getting towards the finish, I just couldn't believe my luck, you know. I was feeling really good, but I wasn't really nervous at all. Once I got on my own, about 3 kilometres to go, I didn't take any risks on the wet corners with the zebra crossings, and I had enough strength to get to the finish.
And with about 1 kilometre to go, you looked over your shoulder. Did you know you'd got it then?
Yeah, once I got to about 400 or 500 metres out, I looked at the bunch who was behind me and looked at the finish. I thought, well, I'm closer to the finish than the bunch is to me, and so I thought I've got this one, and I did the right things. I did my shirt up. I made a little sign to say thanks to my wife and thanks to my baby for putting up with me basically, and it's a great day. It's a great day.
And the main field are coming in some 3 minutes plus behind Neil Stevens today, although it won't make any difference at all to the overall classification. And so as they come in, they're fighting out 14th place. Eric Zabel, the man who's finishing it off, he's 3rd place here. This is led out by Christian Hen. And this will just be a few more points in the bag for that green jersey competition. He's about to get a challenge coming up on his shoulder there. I think it's Traversoni who's taking him on, but it won't matter. Zabel gets it, and almost 4 minutes the gap. So the result of the stage, and it makes happy reading for the Australians. Neil Stevens, only the 2nd Australian ever to win a stage of the Tour de France, ahead of Kamazind, Ekimov and Laurent Roux. And this surely a very proud moment for him. He's on top of the pile. All smiles for Neil. Overall, though, Jan Ullrich keeps all of his lead, 6:22 ahead of Vironk, and he can go and visit the family now just over the border. 7th place for Bjarne Riis, but 18 minutes back, this man, and nobody would ever have thought that.
175 kilometres from Colmar to Montbéliard, but Neil Stevens is about to get a new teammate on Festina.
And the talk here in the village this morning in Colmar is about the huge fee that Alex Zülle has commanded for leaving the Once team at the end of this season and joining the Festina squad of Richard Virenque. They say over the next 3 years he will earn the best part of £3.5 million. Well, this is the time of the year in the Tour de France when the riders try to impress and the managers might look to strengthen their squads. So we gave Paul Sherwin an unlimited budget and told him to go out and name his team for 1998.
Well, the Village Depart is a very good neutral meeting point for riders and managers from opposing teams. It's here that very often the deals are done for managers trying to put together their teams for the following season. Now, a great team is made up of a leader, a climber, a sprinter and 6 excellent workers. Now, if I were to go out and put together my ideal dream team, it'd look something like this. The top man has to be Jan Ullrich. At 23, he's certainly here to stay. The cost, a cool £1.5 million. My climber would be Marco Pantani. Heading for 3rd place this year after so many injuries means next year he'll be even better. The choice of sprinter is more difficult, but I think I'd have to go for Mario Cipollini. He might not finish the Tour, but he'd certainly get a lot of press coverage in the first 10 days. Johan Museeuw would be the team captain. His knowledge of how to race is the best, and he'd make the tactical decisions on the road. The next man would be the tough Aussie Neil Stevens. The advantage of Stevo is that he can work for the team on the flat and in the mountains, and his experience is invaluable. From Spain, Jose Maria Jimenez has been this year's revelation. He'd play an integral part of the team in the mountains. Roberto Conti from Italy has been a consistent professional for many years. You know you can count on him when the hammer is down. After top performances over recent years, Udo Bolt has proved that he's always there to help his leader. The 9th man would be Stuart O'Grady. He's already good enough to lead out the sprints, but with development within the team, he's got a great future.
Well, I think quite a few team managers would like the money to buy that quality of a racing team, especially for the Tour de France. Well, here's one of the men on Festina now, not worried about the arrival next year of Alex Zülle. And because Didier Roos is trying to get away on his own and fly the flag, Festina have ridden so well.
They really have. Every time there's been an opportunity, they've put their men at the front and tried to toughen up the race. They realise that is where they reign supreme. It's on the mountains, and this time it's the turn of Didier Roos to try and set the race alight.
Well, the early part of the Grand Ballon, it was Casagrande who went over the top there ahead of Jalabert. On the Ballon d'Alsace, though, now we've got Didier Roos, who's trying to get clear of the rest of them, and he has a gap of around about 3 minutes.
Well, he's a great time trialist. In fact, last year when he rode for Gann, he beat Chris Boardman in the time trial of the Criterium International. And if he wants to stay clear now, he's going to have to put a very good solo effort in.
Well, it looks like one of Paul Sherwin's dream team riders tapping out the rhythm on the front at the moment, Udo Boltz.
In fact, the second man in my dream team there, Roberto Conti, always at the front doing a little bit of work, but they're not doing anything to eat into the lead of this man, Didier Roos, as he looks for the summit of the Ballon d'Alsace.
Well, Didier Roos was with his partner and teammate Pascal Hervé, but for no apparent reason, Hervé seemed to surrender and drop back, and he's let Roos go up by himself, and Hervé, I think, has now been picked up by the chase, while over the top of the Ballon d'Alsace, a 120 done and 55 kilometres still to go.
At the back of the main group here, you can see a lot of riders suffering, and the fact there are so many crowds, so many spectators here, it's almost impossible to attack. There is Pascal Hervé, so he has been brought into the main field, and the main field being led at the moment by Laurent Dufaux. I think a little bit of confusion at the bottom there. Hervé really didn't know what to do. They thought they were putting Jan Ullrich into pressure, so he sat up and waited for his teammate Virenque, and there could have been two men in the lead, but for Festina today, there's just one man.
This is the way to slow down the chase. Just put two teammates on the front, get a big crowd around you, and nobody can go by you. And so Didier Roos's gap must be opening quite dramatically at the minute. 3:37, it's official over the top of the Ballon d'Alsace. The last time we came over this hill, by the way, was in 1982. It's a very, very difficult climb, and Roos now is over the top. No more climbs left of note. He's now making his run for the finish at Montbéliard.
In fact, another man having serious difficulties again there is Bjarne Riis. He's a long way behind. And what a great place to get a view of the Tour de France.
Well, goodness knows how they got up there, but you wouldn't catch me up there. Anyway, if they can see this far down, they're going to pick out the man from Festina. And the French are having their best tour for years and years, Paul.
Well, that's the way it is. For several years now, it's been a total Italian domination, but it seems now there's a rejuvenation of French cycling, and really a rejuvenation of Festina, because they are the team that has gone out and hit home. The other French teams really haven't quite had the success of the team that was based in Andorra and has now come back to France.
Well, there's Laurent Roux going through. Laurent Madouas is also there, but now with Manny still running for home here with 5 kilometres to go. I don't think there's any doubt he's going to win the stage. His lead is still going up here. There's no real chase on behind. He's hit them again at the right moment. And Pascal Hervé, you know, must be kicking himself now because he was with this man.
Well, very strange. I don't think he really knew what to do, but interestingly enough, a group of 9 riders has got clear, and they'll be looking for second place out on the road. And once again, 2 Festina riders in that squad, but at the front of the main field, the work being done by Banesto.
So Didier Roos, look at this now. He's got the chance here. He knows how far ahead he is. All he wants is the stage prize. There's nothing else. It's $7,500 for the win here, and he's just waving to the crowd. He's conducting his own orchestra. He really is enjoying this. This is just a continuation of the tremendous success of Festina. After Neil Stevens comes Didier Roos.
Well, that's going to make it 2 out of 2 for Festina. Brilliant ride by this man. They went out originally to try and put Jan Ullrich under pressure on the last few climbs of this year's Tour de France, and it worked for them by putting a man in the lead. And again, Bobby Julich is in that chase group of 9, but Didier Roos, he knows he's got it, and he wants to be a chef d'orchestre.
Well, why not? He's got 1 kilometre to go, a sheer pleasure here. His lead over the chasers is more than 5 minutes, and they are in danger of being swept up by the field. So he's got all the time in the world now. It'll take him about 1 minute and 20 seconds to ride this last kilometre of the course at this speed, and they're not going to close any of that gap on him.
Well, I don't think he can believe it. He went out today with one mission, and that was to help his teammate Richard Virenque. But sometimes plans backfire, and it's backfired in a very nice way for Didier Roos, because it's going to get him a marvellous victory as he comes up to the line, not even having to worry about how behind anybody else in this race is.
So another French victory. I think this is victory number 6 in the stages for the French, giving them their best tour for many, many years. So Didier Roos crosses the line. Festina continue to build up the money in the coffers as they win the daily stages. And look at this from the group here. Pascal Hervé, who was with Roos, got dropped. He still won the sprint for second place. They just can't do a thing wrong. Third place taken out there by Bobby Julich. So a good ride by Julich, who simply gets better and better. Here's the main field coming in. There's the clock. It's a big time gap, and again Zabel is trying to clean up for the rest of the field. This sprint, in fact, will be for about 11th place. He's being challenged on the line here. but he's not going to get anywhere. Zabel gets the sprint and more points for the green jersey. So that is the main field coming in. The yellow jersey of Jan Ullrich safely home yet again. Didier Roos the winner today from Pascal Hervé. Bobby Julich of the US and Cofidis getting third. Laurent Roux taking fourth place overall. So overall though, the change, well, there simply isn't any, because Jan Ullrich still has that 6-minute 22 margin. As we look further down the list here, Jan Ullrich finishing 35th today alongside Marco Pantani. There's the confirmation of the time gap. 10 minutes 13 now to Pantani. Fernando Escartin is there as well. On we go. We stay in the mountains for just one more day.
Indeed, Festina have won the last 2 stages in this event. They've had 4 stage wins in all since this race began in Rouen. What's the chances now? Perhaps Laurent Dufaux winning at Dijon and giving them 3 in a row. We've had 19 racing days in the Tour de France. We've had 14 different stage winners. They've had their great moments, but where are they now?
Sorensen here, not among the winners yet, at least in this year's Tour de France, and we expected he might have been. He was the first Danish rider to win the Tour de Flanders earlier this year, the classic race. Anyway, this is a breakaway of 14, and Paul, it really got away right from 0 kilometres today when Arnaud Preto got away.
They obviously felt they had a great chance of escaping the pack because the main competitions are almost decided, and here the 3 leaders of those competitions riding side by side, almost as friends.
Well, we're heading towards Dijon, which of course is famous for its mustard, and I'm afraid none of these riders are going to be in the hunt today because they have dropped back minutes and minutes behind. The biggest time gap we've recorded so far is approaching 20 minutes down.
1 kilometre to go, and I suppose in Dijon we can expect a very hot finish.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, the bunch is completely out of it. This is the rest of the group. Now, the 2 riders who have slipped away here are Bart Voskamp of the TVM team and Jens Heppner of the Telecom team. Heppner out in front. Strangely enough, Voskamp was in at the kill towards the end of the Tour last year when he was taking on another Telecom rider, Christian Hen, and he beat him then at Endai, and now he's going to take on Heppner and go for him as well. As Bart Voskamp goes to try and get TVM a second stage, and remember they got the first one by a disqualification, and Jerome Blyleven's was the winner. Now Voskamp has gone for the line. He's making a little move to the centre of the road, but now coming on his left is, it looks as though, Jens Heppner. Oh, and they've clashed here. Heppner rode straight across the road as they cross the line there. Well, Voskamp, I think, is the winner, but the way the judges are operating here this year, I'm not so sure. Here is the sprint now for 3rd place, and it looks as though Traversoni is going to get 3rd, and that will be Francois Simon of Gans who slips there in 4th place. Look at this, Paul.
Really quite remarkable. In fact, I think if Voskamp hadn't been there could have been a serious crash coming up to the line.
Well, in my opinion, Voskamp has done nothing wrong there. He's got the victory. If anybody's done anything wrong, it's possibly Jens Heppner. But let's go to Paul Schurin because he's much nearer the judges than I am. He's right down in the finish zone.
Well, Phil, once again, a pretty dramatic sprint, but the judges have gone round to their booth just to check the slow-motion replay to see if there were any infractions. You can see the sprint here. This is the man in yellow, is Bart Voskamp leading the sprint out. A fairly straight sprint for him down the middle of the road. Jens Heppner on the other side comes across and leans into him, and in fact, I think Heppner was almost on the point of crashing. Both riders using a very big gear indeed, and Heppner uses the shoulder of Voskamp to stay safe, keeps himself upright. Voskamp goes over the line in first position. I don't think there'll be too many problems with that.
Well, let's have a look at the main field coming in. Almost 18 minutes behind here, and a rare sprint win for Cedric Vasseur there, who takes out what will in fact be 15th place. But this controversial sprint has resulted in the disqualification of both riders. They have been placed 10th and 11th. Mario Traversoni is the winner. Let's find out what's happened.
Because they were both making a wrong maneuver in the final sprint.
It's a strange decision to make because normally you can only put a rider back to the last place in the group that he was in.
Yeah, that's right. But for this special case, we found it so flagrant that we made this decision.
The idea is to try and keep the sport clean?
Exactly.
But it's not a popular decision with the crowd.
Well, too bad, but what can you do?
Jens, can you just tell us what you think about the judge's decision?
Shit is crazy here. It's all crazy.
What exactly happened in the sprint?
What happened is what you see. Nothing happened. I sprinted on the line and he sprinted on the line. I cannot ride in the saddle a sprint. It's like this and this. And the moment I go to the left, he comes to the right. That's a sprint. We just close together, but
it seemed very much as if he actually fell onto you.
Yeah, that looks for me also. But that's not a problem for me. The problem is the judge. I did it right, and I don't think he did it wrong or something. But the jury did it wrong.
Well, I think one has to feel a great deal of sympathy there for Bart Voskamp. I think the judges made a great error. Anyway, they've given it to Mario Traversoni. He's managed to smile now, but when he was told, he couldn't believe it because he finished in a group some 26 seconds behind. Anyway, it's made no difference, of course, to the overall situation. All of these riders finishing in that big bunch nearly 18 minutes back. So the time gaps now are the same as we line up for the last big time trial of this tour, 63 kilometres. We have now moved up the motorway to Disneyland. And here is one rider now trying to deliver a blow that might give him a fine overall finish. He wants to be the best Spaniard, Paul.
Abraham Alano, and in fact he's imported that bike, the Pinarello, you can see there, based on the development of the Espada of Miguel Indurain, and a very fast and mean machine it is too.
Signing in, we're getting used to seeing his autograph now as last man to come up in the Maillot Jaune as leader. Another test for him today, but he has a big margin now, so I don't think he'll worry too much as we go back to see the departure of Marco Pantani, who's managed to move clear of the rider in 4th place. So if he does just a reasonable time trial, Paul, he'll be on the podium in Paris tomorrow.
Well, certainly he really would like to do that, but out on the course, Abraham Alano is riding a very good time trial, but it is a little bit tricky, but I certainly think this time trial suits the stronger men for the flat. And Richard Virenque, well, I think he's going to have a very hard time on this course because it doesn't suit him as much as the time trial course did in Saint-Étienne.
Well, as we see the departure of Virenque here, the finishing time on the board is being held by the last rider in which what's going on down here?
Well, this is Bjarne Riis. He's had a problem there. He's trying to get back onto his bike. He did stop for a change. I think it was a puncture, but now he doesn't seem to be able to get his foot in correctly there. He's playing around with those shoe covers, and he's actually going to stop again.
Well, this is unbelievable. This has not been Riis's day. There's about $7,000 worth of machinery just been held across the road there. Bjarne Riis actually fell off when he came to sign in at the start. He then reported and got a 20 seconds late departure. Now he's had a flat out on the course. Meanwhile, it's all going right for Abraham Alano because he is about to catch the rider in front of him, and that would be Casagrande.
Well, he started 3 minutes ahead, but Bjarne Riis not looking happy at all with his time trial. He really has had all kinds of difficulties this afternoon. His bike was not right. It's a very expensive one, but still the chain managed to come off. But Abraham Alano has caught and passed Casagrande. Casagrande, I must admit, Phil, has done a great tour, but here's Bobby Julich coming up, and he too has put a very good time in second best time behind his own teammate, 1:18.21.
Oh, people are going to see Bobby Julich now as a real contender in the Tour de France next year. He's had a great last 10 days, and there's more action out on the course.
Well, Alano, in fact, has gone and caught Bjarne Riis. This is something nobody would have expected at the start of today's time trial. This man started more than 6 minutes in front of him, and he's caught and passed the winner of last year's Tour de France. Abraham Alano is certainly storming to a great ride.
Well, in fact, Bjarne Riis, his tour has gone completely wrong today. He's going to be many, many minutes behind Jan Ullrich now. But what I tried to tell you earlier was that Philippe Gaumont, the Lanterne Rouge of the Tour de France, is still the best time back at the finish house. He was first man to go. He's done an incredible time of 1 hour 17 minutes and 9 seconds. We've seen Julik come in. He's lying second at the moment, but Alano is setting the best time all the way out on the course.
Well, at one of the splits here, Marco Pantani fading away a little bit, 36.38, almost 2 minutes off the mark. But this man is not at home on the flat time trial stages, but he does have to put in a very good ride to keep his third spot away from Alano, who really is scorching around this time trial course.
Well, Alano at the rate is pulling back time on Pantani. He won't be far behind him for that third place. Here he is, and he's riding extremely quickly. And there is Richard Virenque now, and he'll be feeling pretty pleased, Paul, because he hasn't been caught yet by the yellow jersey.
Well, in fact, said this morning, there's one thing I want from this time trial, and that's not to get caught. But coming up to the line now, Abraham Alano, and he's going to go in with the best time.
Well, one would say about time too, because Philippe Gaumont was the first man to start. He's been watching on television. In fact, he's been doing a bit of commentary alongside to my right. But now he's seeing Abraham Alano finally get a good time that is going to remove him from the leaderboard as number one at least. Alano 1:15.57 is the new leader. He has produced what we all knew he could do. A great time. So look at Rees, a long, long way behind. 1:25 and only 88. Nearly 9 minutes, nearly 10 minutes down.
Well, a good ride by Pantani. He'll be happy with that. I think he's gone inside the time that he'd set this morning. 14th time for him, 4 minutes and 35 seconds lost. It's good enough to keep his third spot.
Absolutely. Alano, though, he'll be up to fourth now. Richard Virenque's got his own problems. If he looks over his shoulder, he could well see Jan Ullrich is getting him in his sights. But I think Richard Virenque will be feeling reasonably happy with this ride.
Certainly his personal goal this morning was not to be caught by the yellow jersey. He said, I've seen too much of that man and I don't want to see him one more time in the time trial today.
Well, Jan Ullrich is not riding a winning time trial at the moment, but he's certainly riding a winning Tour de France. Here comes Richard Virenque to the cheers of the crowd here at Disneyland. He looks over his shoulder. He knows he's not far ahead of the yellow jersey, but he's far enough. He's going to deny him that great moment of catching him. Virenque speeds towards the line. He's way outside the time of Abraham Alano, who will win this Tour. Because of Virenque doing 1:19, it means that Ullrich will do somewhere in the 1:16 region. Virenque gets the 8th best time. It'll drop him down to 9th now as the Maillot Jaune comes up to the line, and there it's confirmed. It'll be a 1:16. Abraham Alano will win this stage of the Tour de France, his first ever stage win. Ullrich will take second place, and that is good enough. And so congratulations all round for Jan Ullrich here. You remember he won the final time trial last year. He took nearly half the overall lead away from his teammate Bjarne Riis. But today, Jan Ullrich has kept all of his overall lead. The margins now are big. And so Mickey Mouse has presided over an extremely good stage of today's stage of the Tour de France, although Bjarne Riis might not agree. Alano winning by 45 seconds from Ullrich. Philippe Gaumont, the Lanterne Rouge, gets third on the stage, and a great ride from Bobby Julich, who finishes fourth. Eric Decker there in fifth. He won the Olympic silver medal in the road race back in 1992. And he lost 2 minutes 39 today to Alano. Overall, of course, there is no change at all, except the gaps are even bigger now. Well, there is one change. Abraham Alano comes up to fourth. He claims best Spanish rider. Since 1975, the hallowed cobblestones of the Champs-Élysées has welcomed the chosen few to Paris. But for today, Jan Ullrich will not be attacked. He'll be allowed to enjoy his great moment. You know, Paul Sherman has also finished 5 Tours de France on these cobblestones. He knows what it takes. And here he is now to tell us about the courage of 3 men who've left their mark on this tour.
Cedric Vasseur found his spirit in this year's Tour de France, and I know he'll never be the same rider again. His attack at the bottom of the final climb of Arcalis in Andorra was made by the desire not to lose his yellow jersey. Even though he knew defeat was inevitable, he still went down fighting. Marco Pantani left his mark on this year's Tour de France when he attacked at the bottom of the Alpe d'Huez. Nobody could match the speed with which he came out of the front group. He even broke his own record set 2 years ago for the fastest ride up that mountain, setting a new time of 37 minutes and 35 seconds. But more impressive was his comeback. After 18 months of rehabilitation, he still had the skill and desire to climb faster than anyone. The most important moment of this year's tour was on stage 10. After several attacks by Frenchman Richard Virenque, which only seemed to annoy Jan Ullrich, the German just accelerated and blew everyone away, riding on challenge to a lone victory and his first yellow jersey, at the same time transforming himself into the champion of a new era.
And so this is the last stage now, and at the moment, Paul, everybody is enjoying a beautiful summer's day as we head towards Paris and the final roundup on the Arc de Triomphe from the Champs-Élysées. Even our cameraman here, Patrice, the pilot, in his Mickey Mouse outfit, as he escorts the race along the highway. There hasn't been a pedal turned in anger, has there?
Well, normally on the last day it is a little bit more relaxed. Everybody just saying hello and goodbye for the last time because the Tour de France has been on the road now for 3 weeks. But once they get to the Champs-Élysées, Phil, then the red flag comes in and the race begins in earnest.
Two ex-East German amateur teammates there talking to one another, Eric Zabel and Jan Ullrich, now about to win the two biggest prizes of the Tour de France. Jean-François Pecheur, once a rider on the same team as you, Paul, now talking to Eros Poli.
The tallest man in the Tour de France, and he's just going to take a nice little glass of champagne, but don't take too much, Eros, because there's still a few kilometres to go.
That's my boy, over your shoulder, just like salt. Eros Poli learned to speak English because he's married now to an Australian lady. He met her in Australia during the 1988 Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic out there. Well, this is the crowd that awaits. The Arc de Triomphe at the top end of the Champs-Élysées is ready. This great road in the centre of Paris completely closed to traffic. And, well, last year the support was all for Denmark. Now it's all for Germany.
Quite amazing. It really has become such a cosmopolitan and international Tour de France because over the last few years people have travelled from the length and breadth of Europe to support their champions. But as I said, Phil, once they're on the Champs-Élysées, the race is really on.
Well, last year it was 8 circuits, so this year it is 10 circuits to make up 159 kilometres. And the riders now are in the streets of Paris. We're going through what will be the finishing line at the end of the last stage of the Tour de France.
Michael Bogert there, the champion of Holland, in second position. Not too many pink jerseys at the front this time because they would surely try and organise themselves and try and give Eric Zabel a final victory on the Champs-Élysées, which really is, I think, the mecca for the sprinters. If Alpe d'Huez is for the climbers, then surely it has to be here for a sprinter to take out a great stage victory.
Well, across the Place de la Concorde, this is Frédéric Guédon, who's trying to slip away from the field. He was the surprise winner this year of Paris-Roubaix, and he's completing the Tour de France as well.
Well, he hasn't surprised too many of the sprinters there. He's opened up a gap of about 30 metres, but the speed is so high, Phil, I don't think he's going to stay away.
He's going to give it a go. They've had one stage win, a wonderful day in Fribourg when Christophe Mengin got away and not got away, but won the sprint from the group that got away from the main field. Now, it's a tall order to try and hold off the Tour de France in the centre of Paris when you're one man versus the rest, and I think the whole field are going to scrabble away up to him now.
Well, one man who doesn't give up, Laurent Brochard, there trying to get across. You recognise him because he wears his bandana, the red and white one, around his head. And going through in the pink jersey, Laurent Jalabert. A very quiet Tour de France for him, maybe hoping that something will come right on the street of the Champs-Élysées.
Into the underpass and still in the lead as he climbs out. He'll head down the Rue de Rivoli very shortly now, but the telecoms are after him. They want to present Zabel with the best shot at gold again. He's got 4 stage wins under his belt at the moment, although one didn't count, and now he's looking for another one.
Well, this is Guédon still holding on. He's going to see the kilometre kite in a very short while, indicating that he's almost at the end of his vigil. Little behind there, we've still got Giovanni Lombardi keeping the pressure on, hoping that he's going to just close down on this lone rider and putting his man Zabel into the final corner in an ideal position.
Well, you've got to hand it to Guédon the way he's done this. He's hidden virtually throughout the whole of the Tour de France. It's the first time we've actually seen him in the front of the action, but he's about to go to the back again because now the Rabobank boys have started to come up as well, and they are hoping that Robbie McEwen will deliver a stage win.
We're moving up into second place. Another man we haven't seen an awful lot of in the Tour de France this year, Frankie Andreu. He knows how to finish second here. He's done that before, but he's come to the front just a little bit too soon as he sweeps across the Place de la Concorde, and very shortly the riders will be turning right with just 400 metres remaining.
So the crucial final bend as they line up now for the finish, and let's see if Eric Zabel can go out on a very high note. He's won the green jersey for the second year in succession. as they now line up for the finish here. And the sprinter started, George Hincapie of US Postal is having a real dig here as he tries for the line. Zabel is coming on the left. Minali's got onto the inside. Minali has got clear, and Nico Minali gets the win. So he beats Eric Zabel. I think Henk Vogel's got third, and Blijlevens again a top 6 there. He will have got fourth. And George Hincapie just pushed away as he tried to make that a desperate finish for the Postal. In fact, the US Postal team finishing all 9 riders, and only 3 teams have done that. The other is Festina, and the other one, of course, is Telecom. There's the win, though, for Nicola Minali, second time out. This is the important result, though, after 100 hours in the saddle. Jan Ullrich winning by 9 minutes and 9 seconds. Bjarne Riis, 7th, 26 minutes and 34 seconds behind. There's the top 3. Their names Ullrich, Virenque and Pantani. He got third. So, Jan Ullrich, at 23 years of age, has won this Tour de France by the biggest margin since Laurent Fignon won in 1984. He's a real superstar. He says he'll retire when he's 30 years of age. You know that means he could win the Tour de France 7 more times. I hope you enjoyed this video of the Tour de France. We certainly have enjoyed bringing it to you. Until the next time, goodbye.